Yes, people. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. For those that you love to do them with, please let me know if you can hear me okay. Having some sort of technical issues. I think they are resolved. I think so. Listen, what's going on? We've got an interesting show for you today. I was playing around with a little bit of transfer news and also going through the FB refs, going through the various valuations on transfer market of some of the most frequently touted names that Tottenham are interested in at the moment. Players like Jonathan, players like Ousmane Diomande, a player that I'm a massive fan of. Diomande is absolutely incredible. 21 years old, plays for Sporting Lisbon. He is likely to move on this summer. And Tottenham and Liverpool and et al., all those big names that you know are going to be doing a kind of merry-go-round, a little bit of a domino falling effect of who goes where. Christian Romero will be a large part of that conversation. Should he stay at Tottenham Hotspur? Should he go? Then what will emerge from that will be likely an incredibly interesting and tasty summer transfer window with the likes of the best of the rest in the Premier League and elsewhere looking to move on, as there's a whole bunch of big teams that are looking for centre-back options and a whole bunch of players that are seemingly emerging in and out and through youth teams and into the zeitgeist of football aficionados and journalists around Europe. And it's going to be a fascinating encounter. Of course, Tottenham also looking for a specific player here or there with regards, maybe a number 6, maybe it will be, there you go, my Gunners in the house. Arsenal also looking at him as well. Look, he's a really talented player. I've done a hell of a lot of research on this guy, and I've got like 6 takeaways about this kid out of Ivory Coast and out of Sporting. We'll talk about him in a moment. But of course, Tottenham fans, look, you never universally agree on anything, but for the most part, Tottenham fans will look at our squad and think that, I would imagine, think that we're capable with a maturing youth crew, that we were capable of more, that our position doesn't represent the strength of our squad, and that if you dabble in, you sprinkle a little bit of salt like Salt Bay into the mix there with some experience, some top quality, move a few players on, if the money is right, if the recipe is correct, then Tottenham should be able to elevate themselves next year back into the contention for European spots at the bare minimum, and you'd hope be a shout for Champions League football, especially if you don't have the distraction of European football. But if you do have the distraction of European football, the only way it can come is through the Europa League. And of course, if that was to materialize where the Europa League trophies lifted at White Hart Lane and the bus parade that would go down the Tottenham High Road, down Seven Sisters Road in early June, well, not only does that come with optimism, come with momentum, and it also brings a sense of relief and joy and about timeism that would flutter through the ranks of the Tottenham fans. But then obviously you have not only the difficult conversation around what do you do with the manager, but you would also have a conversation around, well, does that mean that we've got to play? Well, it will mean we have to play 2 games a week at the highest level of football, but our budgets would be representative of that. You'd have an extra probably 80 million quid that you'd be able to throw if everything was, by the by, if there was no distractions and hotels to pay for and the complexity of what's going on with the likes of the Qataris of the world that may or may not be participating in takeover purchases in the background. Either way, guys, what I've managed to put together for you today, there's a little chit chat. There's 100 people in the house, by the way, so make sure you smash the like, smash the subscribe. We are watching Palace against Fulham in the background. Come of the hour that Sean Butler dares to be contentious and say that Eberechi Eze is maybe not on the same trajectory that he was a couple of years ago. Come of the man who likes to throw mud in my direction. It's almost like he heard me and said, "Is that right, Sean? Spurs Talk Show, yeah? Bugsy fame, yeah? Okay. You're hanging off the coattails of Bugsy Malone? I'm going to rub some salt in those wounds of yours by putting in a worldie for England last weekend, and then this weekend, the return to, well, not Premier League football, but FA Cup football, club level football. And Eberechi Eze has just gone and mudded me massively with a worldie for his first and an absolutely insane assist for his second. Eberechi Eze, look, I'm happy to withdraw my statements. I'm happy to. I don't know, though. Form is temporary, class is permanent. Is the guy back into class territory? Has his form just picked up? Are his injuries behind him? Either way, he's absolutely in ripping form And I haven't included him in today's list. I haven't because I still struggle with the idea of where does he fit into the system. Unless you want to make the idea that you sell James Maddison, which is going to be complicated anyway. Yes, but, and then you go and buy Eze. Those sorts of things are more plausible in a world where, Ange Postecoglou isn't at the club. But if Ange Postecoglou is at the club next season, then it will likely be because we've gone and lifted the Europa League. And as I have said 1,000 times, I am someone who is a meritocracy-driven human being. I want people to do well. I want people to be rewarded for hard work and good outcomes. And I don't want this idea of, payoffs not being paid off, right? If the guy goes and lifts the trophy, as much as I fear that he isn't the guy to take us to the next level, I think that you can't really sack a guy if he has, if he's made us our most, been the most successful manager in our football club in the last 45 years. So certainly in my lifetime. Either way, is it more likely that James Maddison would want to leave if Ange Postecoglou stayed? Yes. Because I think that there's something there. I think that there's definitely something there with a little bit of resistance or lack of platitudes being thrown towards Ange Postecoglou, because there's a lot of egos at Tottenham, and I'm sure James Maddison's is one of the biggest, where he thinks that his output in terms of goal numbers is enough and that the input stats don't really matter. I'm sure Brennan Johnson is someone that would like to lean into the same sort of conversation. But if you wanted to go and get an Eberechi essay, then I think that only makes sense if you were to go and relieve James Maddison of his duties. But I haven't included that in today's roundup because it's just another 2 levels of complexity, right? Like, how do you find a buyer for James Maddison who's willing to pay the £50 million that we probably want for him, £40 million? And how do you also then convince Crystal Palace to sell? And if they are going to sell, are they going to sell to Tottenham, who they may now see as rivals because of the proximity in the Premier League standings? Is he more likely to look at Tottenham and say, the only reason I'd go there is because of CAA base and because it's a London thing? But ultimately, if Eze is for sale this summer, there's probably going to be teams with bigger ambitions and bigger likelihoods of success in that regard than Tottenham that would come calling. And budgets are budgets, right? Budgets are budgets. And if you're not playing in the Champions League, then would Eze want to play for you? If you are playing in the Champions League, it's probably right that he would. But also there's the money in that from that whole participation process that makes that sort of thing affordable. Tottenham can't do it all. I've said for a long time, I think that Tottenham will still be able to muster together about 80 million quid in a net spend budget. From what I've looked at in the numbers, although the official numbers aren't yet out for Tottenham, but we can look at Deloitte's estimations, which are usually there or thereabouts, and also the estimations of Swiss Ramble, which are always there or thereabouts, to make some assumptions. And I've done that, crunched the numbers, and without trying to give myself, I'm going to have a slurp. This is giving me a heavy arm. 1 second. I've made some assumptions, but I usually do. And if I'm entirely honest, I get a load of things wrong. Maybe the Eze prediction was the wrong one. Maybe, I could list them forever, right? I'm just a fan with an opinion. And obviously, like everyone in life, you say a lot of things that don't turn out to be true. However, I think PSR and FFP was kind of one of those examples, right? I was expecting there to be a lot more than there was, at least for the teams that we're competing with at the top end. Nottingham Forest and Everton were victims of it. Oh, look at Palace. They're just sliding through. Palace in the semi-finals of the Cup. Wow. In all likelihood, unless Fulham can turn it around. Anyway, guys, have that on in the background. If you want to dial in with me, we can watch it together. Palace, Fulham have got to now come out and play, haven't they? And Palace could easily pick them off at the back. Anyway, one thing I do think I usually do get right within a standard deviation of the norm, 1 or 2 degrees. I think I'm always right there or thereabouts, bang on what the budgets can and will be. I've done my numbers, and I think that Tottenham can afford probably about an £80 million budget without any European football. With it, obviously, the numbers go up. And so when I'm about to present to you guys my dream transfer window that's realistic, I think you might disagree, but I think the numbers that I have put together in terms of what we can get for, go on, Fulham, make it interesting. I think you will find that most of the numbers that I put together in terms of what are realistic on the incomings and the outgoings are there or thereabouts. And if you agree, then essentially what I've come up with is a list of 5 incomings, 4 outgoings, and then the promotion of a couple of youth teams, players and returning players that can hang around, that I believe, when you look at the squad that I'll show you towards the end, then you get to a situation where I think you've got a first team and a second team, or like a squad that can put out two 11s that I think are both banging, absolutely banging, and a third team, like a youth team that can be promoted here and there, depending on their access to games, depending on their own promotions. And that looks like it's incredibly youthful and prosperous and optimistic, and reasons to be cheerful in that regard too. So hang around and see what it looks like. And I promise you, we're only selling one monster player that people wouldn't want to sell in an ideal world, but maybe his intentions are elsewhere. Everybody else, I'm pretty sure we're all happy with letting go of to some degree. And the players that are coming in are not necessarily world superstars. They are all, as I say, priced, I think, fairly. And we'll see what we're going on. Feel what's going on. Let's see the Susan the house before we get going. Keith Edwards, have you put your clocks forward already, Sean? I haven't, no. I haven't. Just late as always. Keith Edwards, good to see you, mate. Spotlight Spurs, good to see you. Good afternoon, James. Hope you're well, buddy. Good to see you, mate. We're looking at the Amande. Says, my Gunners, yeah, man. He's a class little beast, this guy. I'll talk about him in a moment. Jonathan David, Angel Gomez, Anguissa, all available on freeze. If we get Europe, I can see us looking at Walker Peters because of the club trained player issue. Yeah, I haven't incorporated the European club trained player thing. But you can cover that with just by bringing in certain players like, actually, can you? I don't know. Do they have to have had 3 years? I'm not sure how it works. We won't cover that today. But good to see you, Spotlight. Afternoon, Tom. Who else we got? Cantab. Good to see Eze Masterclass. Yep. Spurs diehard. Good to see you, Adrian. Ellie. If Ange flukes the Europa, there's no way in hell he should remain. Listen, I don't want him here. I've laid out my cards on that one. I don't think he's up to scratch, boys and girls. I don't. I think he's. I think he isn't good enough. But I just also think that life, your success should be rewarded, recognised, acknowledged, and repaid. And I think that if he does go on and win it, and the fact that you got to the semi-final in the Carabao Cup and won the first leg, and the only time we were beaten in it was by the best team in European football, in my opinion, at the moment. And people say, well, Newcastle beat Liverpool. Yeah, but they beat them over one game. So did we. Right? I'm not sitting here saying that Newcastle are not an absolutely creme de la creme team at the moment. They are. But, there is context. 2 legs. Does Newcastle beat Liverpool over 2 legs? I'm not so sure. Maybe they would. We'll find out. I'm on the fence with Ange now. We'll decide at the end of the season. Big arse glass of vodka. It's not vodka. There's a little bit of vodka in it, but it's 7-Up. It's Saturday. I don't care if it's Monday morning. I do what I want. Good to see you, Tony. Nikos. Nick, good to see you, Nick. Would love to sign Eze to replace Sonny. That's the problem. The problem with Eze is is his best fit on the left? Is it best fit in the 10? Versatility is the best form of ability, I guess. I think, but less players. I think buy less players. I think you're trying to say, and promote youth already at the club. Voskovic, Philip, Stonley, and more, and a 6 is essential, and perhaps a right winger. Yeah, I take the same sort of vein. Big up, Drewzilla. Good to see you, my man. Good to see you. Hope you're okay. Who else is in the house? There's 200 people here. Smash the like, guys. Smash the subscribe. I don't really get a chance to do too many streams, just me and you right now, because Johnny, my boy Johnny, is. By the way, I haven't watched the stream back, but I felt like the energy on yesterday's show was just a little bit kind of it was difficult, and it was because mainly I had some more bad news to add to my pile. My mum was taken to hospital, fears of a mini stroke, so. That was why I was probably a little bit kind of short and getting frustrated and stuff with the inability to get my question across or talk about things. But yeah, so apologies. I spoke to Johnny afterwards, and obviously Johnny and I always if we have these little moments where we have little kind of frustrating interactions, it's always in good spirit and always in good intentions, but. You guys don't always necessarily know what he does, and he might be tolerant of me or less tolerant of me depending on what I'm doing or saying, and vice versa. But you guys aren't always necessarily aware, and so don't ever think that Johnny and I have ever got any bad energy. We're sort of brothers to the end. And but yeah, yesterday I was a little bit more impatient because obviously just issues. The list of stresses in my life. I'm surprised I haven't had a heart attack myself. But anyway, we move. The club should sign Nick Voltamade. Is that his name? Voltamade? Dan Bowers. I don't know this player. Should I? I'll go and find out. Big up, Shawnee. He says, hug the love. There. Good to see you, mate. My prediction start season was Palace to win the FA Cup and Brighton to finish fourth. Also predicted us to beat United in the UEFA Cup final, but I now fancy Frankfurt to win it. I think Frankfurt are going to go out in about 3 weeks' time. What are you talking about? We are getting to the final because I've spent a fortune on getting on a ticket. So Tottenham owe me, bro. Tottenham owe me for 40 years of graft. I've taken a punt that Tottenham are going to make it. I don't even know why I did because I've got a season ticket and I've got enough points to assume that I'd be able to get my own ticket via my season ticket. And so I don't even know why I bought the ticket. But you know what? How about this? If Tottenham do make it and I can get my ticket via the club, then maybe I will. Maybe I'll put that ticket up on there's like some sort of giveaway or something. That would be cool, wouldn't it? We'll see. We'll get there first. Let's get on with this. Let's get on with the show, shall we? Thank you, mate. Yeah, always something, man. Always something, indeed. Good to see you, Darren. Good to see you. Good to see you, Ellie. Good to see you, Derek. Good to see you, Scotty. Good to see you, Dean. Yeah, she'll be okay. She's a tough woman. She is tough as old boots. Entering the lines then. No, it's about. I like a few. I like a little bit of access to other fans because it's always nice to see where they're at. You know. Yeah, Jimmy. I know, mate. I know. I said it already. I've already covered that. Eze's embarrassing me. You know. Why would you ever say something contentious? Say a little bit unorthodox. You know. Cristiano Ronaldo isn't the player he was. Scores 50 goals, whatever, right? Insert stupid thing to say here. Just take the easy path and you'll never be muddied. I don't like that. I prefer to say things that are a little bit wild on the off chance that occasionally I'm right. And on the hope that you'll ignore the things that I say that are wildly wrong. Anyway, guys, let's so how are we going to start this? We're going to start this with this. Where's my tear gone? Has it disappeared? I think it has. Hang on, hold the train. Has it disappeared? So, what I've done here, just making sure it's not disappeared. It has disappeared. Let me go and let me get my. You know, I'm gonna work off the notes instead. Okay, I'll work off the notes to keep this one sweet for us. Here's what I've done. Okay. I've basically come to this conclusion that if we were to sell, and I want your thoughts on this one. Right? I've got down that if we sell Richie, Ben Davies, Bissouma, and Romero, right? And I know we have to pay £20 million or give or take for Danzo, right? So I think obviously it's organised, but it's not paid for yet. And obviously Matisse Tell, £50 million or whatever it is that is the remaining on that fee. Now, for me, I wouldn't pay £50 million. The fact that we still have an option versus an obligation, at the time, it was seen as like a bad thing. Just quickly, Cantab, I booked the flights and the ticket, but no hotel. So maybe Cantab, me and you can hook up and we can somehow figure out a way. I'll sleep in your hotel room and you can have the second half or something. We can figure it out, right? Romero is already half of that. Half of what? Add Bentancur. Yeah, Bentancur's on my list as well. So Romero, Richie, Davies, and Bissouma, and Bentancur, right? And I've given. Let me know your thoughts on this one. I've given Romero a valuation of about £85 million, right? Well, somewhere between 70 and £85 million. Let's call it £80 million. I've given Richie a £30 million valuation. In fact, now let me get it up. Oh, where's it gone? Why is everything being logged out? Can I get this up over here? Let's have a look. All right. Present screen. Share screen. Your entire screen. Application window. This is what I want. Bang. Bang, 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 bang. Get that up on the stage. And then go to my profile. So this is... Oh, I don't want to show the takeaway yet, but can you see this little bit here, right? So I've got, in fact, that's not it. It's right here. Here we go. Sell Romero for £85 million. Bissouma for £20 million. Davies for £5 million. Richie for £35 million. And Bentancur for £30 million. Okay. So Romero 85, Bissouma 20, Ben Davies 5, Richie 35, Bentancur 30. You'd let go of Fraser Forster on a free, and I'm pretty sure you'd let go of Reguilon on a free as well. Okay. Now, before we get into the purchases, is that something on a pricing level? Are you okay with the idea of £85 million for Romero? Do you think, let me know, ones and zeros, right? I'm going to go through these ones and zeros. Do you one if Romero for £85 million is reasonable? Zero if it's not, and if so, let me know what we're working with in your mind. Next up, Bissouma, £20 million. Is that reasonable? We'll go 2 and 3. 3 is reasonable, 2 is not reasonable. If not, what's the price? Right? Let's find out where we're at. Let's find out where we're at. So Spotlight on Spurs is saying, no, it's unreasonable. EZ saying, yeah, reasonable. Fiona's saying reasonable. I'd drive Romero for £85 million myself, says Nick. Interesting. I think you could get 85 million quid for him. Think about the inflation in football, right? Think about how much, how much you pay for just average play. This guy comes with pedigree. He's got a reputation. Not many players at Tottenham have are like global names. He is one. He's young enough. He's a World Cup winner. Italian sort of footballing story. Argentinian blood. The feistiness. I don't think there's a better centre-back in the Premier League with a ball at his feet. Obviously, he's rash, but some people appreciate that. Some systems appreciate that. And I don't think he's as good as everyone else does, but I do think that world football puts this guy on a pedestal. And I think if you were to see some random aggregator, some random journalist, some random, some football YouTube channel that just talks about football generally, who are the top 10 centre-halves in the world, I think he'd be on that list. I don't think he should be on that list, but I think he would be on that list because he's won a World Cup, because he plays for Argentina, because when he plays for Argentina, he's usually an absolute diamond. And I don't think he's as valuable to Tottenham as he is to Argentina. I think he thinks he's a bit. Also, I don't like the fact that he calls out our owner. I don't like the fact that he calls out our physiotherapists, whilst he might be right about some of those things. Remember which side of the bread is buttered, Christian. QT. It's not cute in my mind. Let's see where we're at. So one's for Caveman, one's for Daz. Good to see Darren. Hug the Love Bear says 0. If you're saying 0, then let me know what price point we're at, because I'll make a note of it. I'm happy to restructure the prices and we can meet on the average, because I think that it doesn't matter what numbers you're going to come up with, as long as they're realistic. I think that we can make this transfer budget that I've got here work with or without European football. And I think what we end up with is 2 insanely talented teams, and also a youth team that's got all of the punch to come in and add value when we need it. So as long as you're not going to say 20 million for Romero, then I think that we can work together to find reasonable levels here. So let me know if it's not 75, 80, 85 million. What is it? Mark saying yes. Psychos, yes. Cantab, no. At a minimum, Soul Snipers, 85. I think the 3 represents Bissouma for 20 million, right? So that's 20 million, 20 million, 20 million agreed. 2 is like no. Hug the Love Bear is basically writing me off on all of my valuations. Hug the Love Bear. Where's the love for my valuations? Where's the love for this bear? Where's the love for this bear? Call me Paddington. So 3 for Bissouma, that's agreeable. 70 million is fair, says the Arsenal man. Reports today we are looking at 33 million for Romero. Yeah, that's not happening. Never in a million years. 0 for Bissouma and 60 million for Romero. You think we'll get nothing for Bissouma? Oh, sorry, 0 for the pricing valuation. 60 million, you're saying. 60 million, okay. Worth selling. Let me go. 0 for Romero. They're saying 45. It's no chance we're losing him for 40. We only paid 45 million for him. He's won a World Cup since then. 65 million. No, Sean, more like 65. I think it'd even be under, Sean. He's got 2 years left on his contract, right? 70 million, 65. Big up Mighty Cockerell. Injuries, yes, a consideration. We'll come to Benton in a minute. BJ 45, Tel 55, Romero at least 100. Interesting. Ben Jacobs is saying 45 million. Yeah, Ben Jacobs, a lovely guy. Lovely guy. Talks more than I do. Met him. I haven't met him. I've streamed with him. Really nice guy. Really enjoy streaming with him. And he works for Give Me Sport. He's just speculating, right? He doesn't know. He's not going to know he might know that Tottenham are interested in a certain player, but he's not going to know what Daniel Levy's price tag is. Let's be honest. But I do think that Daniel Levy may be someone that says, fuck Romero for calling me out. Fuck Romero for calling out my, Daniel Levy's like a bit of a, I won't say a tyrant, but you can imagine Daniel Levy being like, who does he think he is? He's an employee. He is an employee calling out me. Doesn't go down well, mate. Trust me, I know. When I worked for Google and I called out people all the time at the top. What are you doing? Let this guy come and have a word with the top guy and we can make some magic happen. No, was told. Didn't really, it is what it is. You learn. Well, actually, I never learned. I said, fuck it, I'll go and do my own thing. And then I got hacked. Maybe Google hacked me. Maybe they did. Sean, what club outside of the Premier League is paying 85 million for a centre-back? It's not happening at that money. That's a reasonable point. It's a reasonable point. Real Madrid would pay it. Barcelona can't pay it. Bayern Munich could pay it, but they don't need it. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Atletico Madrid, I don't think have got any kind of pedigree paying that sort of money. So maybe you're right. Maybe like the options are limited, but the options are always going to be limited for a player of that caliber. He's either going to go to Real Madrid, to Atletico Madrid. I doubt anyone in Italy is going to have the cash. But even if that's the case, then we keep him, right? But my whole pedigree, my whole story today is based primarily on the money we can raise from selling him for a certain amount of money. So work with me. Every player seems to be £100 million out there. Yeah, exactly, mate. If Caicedo's 100 bar, if Enzo's 100 bar, then Romero surely is. Tottenham are prepared to sell, and this is a move driven by Diego Simeone. And I can tell you that Atletico Madrid have already made contact with the Romero camp, and they're looking to... And then it cuts off. Have you come back in with the second one? So hang on, let's see where we're at to. 60 million is fair. I disagree. Massively disagree. 60 million, so why wouldn't Romero be 85? Yeah, Guehi's not 60. Guehi's going to be 70. We bid 70 in January and we got rejected. So if Guehi's 80, Romero's 90. You know what? You haven't convinced me. You negative little so-and-sos. I was about to say something that would get me cancelled then. You negative Nellies, that'll do. You'd sell for 70, says Fiona. Okay. I wouldn't. Between 70 and 80. How about this? How about this meet in the middle? Is 75 reasonable? Is 75 reasonable? One's for, I started with 85. I think I started with. Is 70, I'm meeting you in the middle, right? Let's go. Can we go 75? Can we all agree, just for the purposes of this make-believe hypothetical waste of time, can we rather than having an argument about it, because I've got about 15 more players to go through here. Can we all agree that 75? 1 for yes, 0 for no. How about that? 75 million for Romero. Is that okay? I don't care if you say no, but let's say 1 for yes. Romero is the number at 75. Sorry, 75 is the number for Romero. I'm not haggling over 5 million, Dan. Like, you're coming in, you're like Dan. You're probably someone that hates Daniel Levy. Not only are you named the same, but you're also haggling over 5 million. All right, 75. Let's move on. Cantab still maintaining his little, his. You know what? I'm not sharing a hotel room with you. You're miserable, Cantab, and you're not having half my ticket either. You're not having half my ticket. 75 million for Romero. What was the next one I went to? I don't care. We're doing 75 million. That's it. Okay, I've already come down 10. Bissouma. I said 20 million pound for Bissouma. Is that fair? Is that fair? Can you imagine? Can you foresee one of the teams coming up, or one of the teams like he can be a 6 in the right team, where he's more of a leader? 20 million pounds. Is that reasonable? Is that reasonable for Bissouma? I don't think I've been unreasonable there. Can we do 20 million pound? It's 3-0. 3-0 now, is it? Wow. Palace in the semi-finals of the cup. Wowzers. Michael, you, my man, are someone that I think is very much like me. Always logically consistent. You also like to say the phrase, I don't subscribe to the notion, or I don't subscribe to the idea. And I respect that as a non-English speaking man, as your mother tongue. That is something that I use all the time. Subscription to an idea does not mean you're married to it. You haven't purchased it. You are a believer in it, but you're not. It doesn't define you. And I like that, mate. I've got a lot of respect for you, Michael. I've asked you 15 times, mate. You must dislike me. You must dislike me because I've asked you 15 times. If you'd like to come on and join the channel, or be a part of the channel, then you can message me on Twitter. But you never have. Same with Martin Walton, actually. Sometimes I feel like a lot of people ask to come on. And a lot of people I just sort of say, I don't know you yet. We'll think about it. Other people I reach out to, and they just ignore me. You want to come on now? Okay. You want to play the game with me? You want to come? Oh, yes. Okay. This offer is this offer just for Michael at the moment. There you go, Michael. Come on, mate. Come on and play the game with me. We can chew this over together. Okay. This is nice. We'll get to new friends, football friends. All right, Link. Here he is in the background.
Yep.
How you doing?
Yeah, all right. Listen.
On mute. My side?
Sorry, just give me a second then.
Wait, have I had that football? Have I had the commentary on in the background the entire time?
Is it okay now?
You're good. You're good, mate. You're good. I'm just worried whether I've had the commentary on from the BBC the entire time. Has that been audible on the screen?
It was only you.
Okay.
No background.
Good. How are you, mate? How you doing? You okay? Good to meet you, mate. Good to stream with you.
Yeah. Likewise. Listen, I'm good. New chapter opening up for me. I landed a job finally after a long break after finishing the university. So yeah, it wasn't easy.
What sort of career are you moving into?
So I graduated big data science. So basically,
I could have bet. If I had £1 million on my table right here, I would have bet £1 million that you were going to be something around engineering with regards IT, a coder, a programmer, probably a hacker. Is it you, Michael? Is it you that's been hacking me?
No, I'm not that good. I'm not that good at programming. But yeah, so basically, I finished. My bachelor's was quantum engineering. I know it sounds mad, but yeah, that's what I chose. But I didn't really see myself in a lab job, basically, being a scientist or whatever. So I switched to big data science. So basically, I'm a data analyst, right? And yeah, you could probably guess because I like to take things analytically. Of course there is emotion in football, right? That's only natural. So sometimes emotion takes over, right? But especially when it comes to transfer windows and all that stuff, I like to look at things logically, right? Because people I've always said people say, oh, just slap 70 million on the table for this guy and that guy, and he will definitely accept. And then I'm like, yeah, but the agent might not accept. He maybe does not want to move, right? The club might have issues with something, right? The structure of the
family,
deal is different.
they've got to find a replacement. There's a million variables, right? Yeah, of course. Well, listen, mate, Michael, this is why I've always I could tell you're someone who works in something scientific because of the way I've heard you on various channels, and I've always had a lot of admiration for the way that you present your arguments, especially as a non-English mother tongue.
Yeah.
It's impressive, mate. So I'm glad to share the stream with you, mate. Long overdue. Let me ask you this then. So we're still going to play the game with everybody else. Yeah, Sean is streaming with his hacker.
Guilty.
Guilty. Yeah. Let me ask you, mate. We're still going to play the game with the chat. Yeah. By the way, chat, 350 odd people here on a Saturday afternoon. It's lovely to see. Smash the like and subscribe and all that stuff. Michael, what valuation would you place on Romero's head?
So I think you are overvaluing him a tiny bit. I personally think he is in the realms of 60 million pounds. That's what I would value him at. But if you ask me this before this season, I would be more in your camp, right? I think the issue is that this season proves again that his injury record is not the greatest, right? I think Sava mentioned it plenty of times that he's missing something like 40-something% of the game time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think on top of that, this season he's not been performing well, so the valuation just naturally goes down, right? But this is still, like, for me, 60 million pounds for a player that for me doesn't really look like he wants to stay at the club, right? And we still bring profit, right? We bought him for 45 million. So for me, that's good money, right? I think this is something that Tottenham have struggled with for a long time, signing players when the valuation is still high, right? Because we can debate whether it's like 75, 70, 60, but it's still a shitload of money that you can reinvest into the team, right? So the way I look at it is, if we have a chance, Romero wants to go, we want to sell him, and there is someone who is willing to pay that money, we should let him go, right? That's the way. And I have the same stance with other players too, right? If Brennan Johnson is wanted by someone and we don't want to keep him, then we should let him go, right? Same thing with Sonny, same thing with other players. There are, like, I have some favorites. I would be really pissed off if we sold Kulusevski, for example, right? I would be really
not the money touted. His
definitely.
I spoke about this all week with Johnny. Like, to me, I just look at, versatility is one way of valuing a player. Like, can you play in multiple positions? Can you fill in a gap? But then specificity also is valuable, and I think Tottenham have overlooked specificity massively over the last couple of years. But on top of that, you look at unique selling points, unique value, and I think Decky has a combination of all three. Right? He is versatile. He is a specific player if you need for a specific job, but he's also got like things that other players just don't have, right? Like, there's very few players that I think are 6 foot or more taller and can look up as much as he does, and also keep the ball under close control, right, with his feet. That's something that's usually reserved for smaller people, because the gap is obviously different. Like, the smaller peripheral vision will include your feet if you're 5'7" or whatever, like a Messi. But on top of that, his power, his stamina, there's so many things about him, and he's got a wand of a left foot when he gets the space. And coming into the center has just like risen his level. So for me, if we were arguing over £5 or £10 million for Romero, that's fine. Like, we can round it down to 70, 65, whatever. We can do that. It doesn't really affect my my numbers too much for the purposes of the show. But Decky, if people are saying, Paratici is going to go to Milan and his first signing is going to take back Decky for 50 million quid.
Not happening.
It's wild. It's just so ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. Listen, maybe if we got a mad offer for Kulusevski, right? But yeah, big up, Adrian. Maybe if you got a mad offer for Kulusevski, like twice as much probably, or like, close to like 80 million, I think then maybe the club would be willing to let him go. And again, like, I think there is a lot of things that take part in those sorts of discussions, right? Because we are saying right now that, listen, club might not want to sell Kulusevski for 50 million, or we think the valuation is too low. But if Kulusevski, for example, says to Levy, listen, mate, I want to go, right? I don't want to stay. Then you probably accept the bid that's on the table, right? Instead of keeping him and having him on the wage books when he's not playing, or, dealing with that whole situation. So again, there is plenty of things to take into consideration, but purely like from the value to the team, he's not the best player that we have at the team, but I think he's such a solid piece that no matter the system and no matter the manager, I think he can find space and he can be used in many different roles, right? Whereas there are some players in this team that I feel like are kind of confined to a certain system. Like, for example, Maddison, in my opinion, I don't think he suits the system we are playing right now. I would much rather see him playing the classic like number 10 shadow striker role when when he's the closest guy to the striker and he makes runs off of him. That's the best version of Maddison I think we saw, and we are trying to use him as this like number 8 deep lying playmaker, like dropping back, spraying the ball around. That's not his game, right? So I think
I agree.
Like Maddison, Porro is another example. I love Porro. I think he's a really solid player, but this system is absolutely killing him, in my opinion, right? And there are plenty of Spurs fans who are on his case and want him gone from the team for things that aren't necessarily his fault when he plays, right? Because he's doing what he's asked to do, right? Ange asks him to bomb forward, to be involved in the forward play, and then asks him to bomb back and make split-second decisions while defending against like the best wingers in the world, right? Which are in the Premier League.
Having said that, just quickly to interject, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I'm a massive advocate of this. I say it all the time: show ponies versus workhorses. I don't know if you've heard me say it, but I've seen Maddison when he wants to turn up and when he wants to play a part of the workhorse camaraderie against City when we beat them 4-0, I think it was.
Yeah.
His workhorse effort was phenomenal. His effort that day was largely responsible for why I think we got the result we did. He was brilliant on the ball. He was, look, for me, if you're a show pony, then I have higher expectations of you on the ball than I would be if you were a bit of an all rounder. Okay, if you don't want to track back, if you don't want to do the things off the ball where you participate in the team effort, then that's fine. I don't think that this system can afford to have more than 2 of them in the squad. That's why I've always said, like, when you have a front 4 of Brennan Johnson, Sonny, Solanke, and Maddison, we lose far more than we do better, because you've got 3 players in the front 4 that's supposed to be pressing from the front. It doesn't work because these people don't do it. But James Maddison does have it in his locker to do those things. We've seen it. He just doesn't do it often enough. And so if that's the case, if you're going to take your foot off the gas, it's not like you're incapable of doing it. You are capable of doing it. I've seen it. It's just that you choose not to on too many occasions. And if that's the case, then when you have the ball, my expectations of you are, I'm not going to forgive you for wild misplaced passes. I'm not going to forgive you for lapses in judgment with your shot. I expect you to hit the ball on target 70, 80% of the time rather than 30, 40% of the time. And so that's why I'm not pushing back on your essential argument.
I get your point. I agree with it, actually, right? I agree with your point, right? That what I'm saying is I think some of our players are misused, and it's bringing like the valuation of a fan is brought down because of the misalignment between the system and the player, right? So like for me, Udogie and Porro are wing backs, right? Preferably you would use them in a back 3 system, right? And them being wing backs, or you do I think it's called like the elbow tactic, where basically like one of the fullbacks is the one forming a back 3 and the other one is bombing up, kind of like City did, right? But when you use them in a system like ours, when we ask both of them to be bombing up forward when they are playing in a back 4 system, leaving the back line, isolated with only 2 center backs, I think it just exposes their weaknesses. So I completely agree with the notion that I don't think these players have been performing well this season, right? No. Like Porro has been average, Maddison has been average, but I'm saying that from that average level, the fan looking at how we perform as a team is bringing that average performance, like the view of an average performance, way down, because the system also exposes their weaknesses, right? So this is kind of like what I meant.
You're Ange out, just to clarify. So you're Ange out, are you?
Yes. I wasn't as like dead set on being Ange out. When this season started, I actually was arguing with people that the performances haven't been that bad, or like, because after I think like 5 or 6 games when we lost to Arsenal and Newcastle, plenty of people said that listen, the like Ange's shit and all that stuff, and I was saying like, yeah, but the performance against Arsenal wasn't bad, and against Newcastle it wasn't bad, but we lost. I get it, right? I said that there are certain things that I want to see Ange change and adapt to, and I kind of gave him like a bit of a deadline after Ipswich, right? Because losing to Ipswich for me was like unforgivable to lose to a promoted side, right? At least draw. Like, I get it. You can have an off day, right? So I kind of gave him a.
We were awful that game, and we were awful Palace just before it as well. That was a really bad period, wasn't it? It was just the performance. It wasn't like we were unlucky. We were just poor and outclassed by teams that we shouldn't be. Yeah,
I kind of gave him a deadline of like, next few games I'm going to judge you really harshly, and if you prove to me that you can like adapt and change, I am willing to give you time. Then we won against City, so I was like, in high heavens. But then the bad run started, right, with Fulham, Rangers, Roma, and all that stuff, right? So I basically, I don't have anything personal against Ange. It's not that I don't like him as a person, the way he speaks. I don't mind, right? I don't listen to press conferences. I honestly couldn't give a toss. I want to watch football, right?
Sure.
But I just lost faith in him as a manager, because when I saw the team at its slowest, I think he didn't help, right? He didn't try to elevate what's left of the team and try to get the results that he should be getting, even with those injuries. Because for me, losing to Leicester, unforgivable, right? We drew with Wolves at home that were 19th when we played them, right? And also had injuries. There were a couple of matches where I was just watching us, and I felt like the tactic and the approach that he had was dragging this team even further down than it should be. So based on that, I just said that, listen, I don't think it's a good thing to press forward with Ange, because I don't think he has the capability to elevate this team, even if it's fit. And we kind of are seeing this right now, right? With performances like against Fulham.
I hear you, mate. I hear you. Listen, I mean, this sort of transfer window budget thing that I put together here, and I want to get everyone's take. And good to see you, Adrian. Good to see you, Drew. I'll bring you guys in just a second. We're not gonna focus on the end. This system is based the transfer package or whatever that I put together here is more around regardless of the manager, right? Let's assume that it's either it's Ange or it's a manager that comes in that inherits at least a philosophy that's not that inconsistent, maybe a little bit more kind of considerate of defensive things. But ultimately, let's just make the assumption that there's no changes there. Adrian, good to see you. Just to round off the Romero, because I want to get into the who's coming in to replace the players that are going out, and we've only got halfway through the Romero thing so far, and we touched on Bissouma. Good to see you, Adrian.
Let me give you a list.
No, I don't want a list. I want you to stick with my program here. Just stick to the plan, please. Romero, are you what price point do you want for Romero?
75.
75, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for his quality and his proven ability, World Cup winner, 2 Copa Americas, 75 is a reasonable price with 2 years coming in his contract. If he doesn't, I love the player. I know Spurs fans, they're like with every player, they're either Marmite, they either love or hate every player in the squad that we like or dislike, which is normal. But I want him to stay. Everything progresses for him on the field. We're different without him. We haven't got centre back unless Danso goes on to prove he can do it. PDV goes on rampaging runs now and again, but he's not a ball progressor. So, yeah. So I want him to stay, but if he doesn't sign a new contract, you can't get emo with players. Sell him.
Okay. And just quickly before I can bring in Drew, there's a lot of discourse in here about the valuation. Like I say, Michael makes a good point for why it's lower than 70. I would argue that, and there's a lot of people in the chat that have said more than 80, 90, 100 based on other valuations. If Mark Gahey, for example, was rejected, I think it's clear, obvious. Palace have just got themselves into the semi-final. Congratulations to them. Mark Gahey, if Palace won't even sniff at him at 70. Is the difference in valuation, in your opinion, that's he's not on my list, by the way, but is Gahey 80 at least? Let's assume that Palace value him at 80 at least. Is that English tax based or is that age based? Is that there's is there a difference in the appreciation of people in the chat between a Mark Gahey and a Romero? Because for me, Romero is a better defender than Mark Gahey, better with the ball, better without it, not as good in the air, but the English tax is obviously a thing you have to consider. So, is your valuation on Romero 75? Is that on that basis, is Mark Gahey worth 70? Is Mark Gahey worth 80? Is where do you like, we're trying to use a comparable here for the point of argument.
You talking to me?
Sorry, no, Adrian. Sorry, Adrian. Yeah, sorry.
I don't think there's any comparison between Gray and Romero. Romero's a much better player.
Okay.
I mean, he's the best defender at this club. I mean, I love VDV as well. Fans think he's sexy because he's got the pace, and they see that, and exciting to see when he chases down a defender and wins the ball and all that. But VDV only beats Romero in one stat, and that's pace. Romero beats him hands down in every other stat there is.
Right.
Yeah.
But pace is incredibly important, right? Which is why when we come round to the players that I've got on my list to bring in, a lot of them are pace-centric, because assuming that Ange will still be here.
Strong, but it's not. I mean, depending on the system you play, you can play a mid-block, with players that aren't that quick. I mean, you can still play one fast and one. I mean, Dawson wasn't fantastically fast, which is probably why Poch got rid of him. I love Dawson, right? But so you can have a fast centre back in. If you haven't got a fast centre back like VDV in the team, then you'll see what Spurs have done. Our Ange has adapted, and we've dropped into a mid-block. I mean, like, with high press.
And it hasn't helped us. It hasn't helped our results, though, has it?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. But that's because of stupid defensive errors when we had loads of people in the penalty area that can clear the ball. I mean, when we've dropped back into a mid-block because VDV's not been in the side. I mean, now that we've got a bit more energy players coming back, we've started high press again. But you haven't seen us parked on the halfway line in games. That hasn't happened. I mean, we do get there at times, but we're not there like for prolonged periods of the game, parked on the halfway line.
Yeah, well, I would argue that I think the defenders at Tottenham Hotspur come under a lot of pressure, as does the goalkeeper. Although the goalkeeper's been fantastic, but not because of the high line. It's because of our inability to control the ball when we have it. Our midfielders give the ball away far too much and unnecessary positions, and then you get caught in transition that seems like Liverpool just don't do. Liverpool don't give the ball away like Tottenham does. Arsenal don't give the ball away the way that Tottenham does, and that's a midfield issue. But then the consequences of that are that the defenders are asked to play a high line on the assumption that when you have the ball in natural possession, you're not going to give it away foolishly, and we do because of Pape Sarr, because of Bentancur, because of insert midfielder there that is sloppy in possession, and then you get caught in transition with people like Pedro Porro closer to their penalty area than our own, and it's a problem that starts up the pitch for me.
It is because I've banged on this for ages. I mean, we know, as those of us that have played football, and I was a crap right back, right? Those of us that have played football, I mean, you know that most games are won and lost in midfield. The midfield is a link from the defence, and it's the link through the defence to the attack. I mean, you can critique our forwards, but if they're not getting the ball or be given the chances, then it's not really a fair critique. And the same with the defence. We've conceded goals because, like you've alluded to, our midfield hasn't been able to hold on to the ball. Now, the problem is with the injuries. We've never had Ange has never been able to get a settled midfield blend of three midfielders in that team, or a settled blend, say, choice out of six, say 4 out of the 6. And then combined with poor results, and then probably midfielders lacking confidence as well, it's all exacerbated our problems in midfield. And if we need to fix the midfield, if you want his team to improve, you have to fix the midfield first.
Which we're going to come to, Adrian. We are going to come to, mate, because I've got the players that I want to bring in, and I think they're reasonable. So just to round off, I want to give you the last crack on Romero. I'm going to get Drew's take on Romero's price point, and then I'm going to give Drew the first crack on the correct valuation for Bissouma and maybe Bentancur as well. But so Adrian, you're saying
keep
70. How much do you say for Romero? 75.
75. But
okay,
keep
so I know you say keep it. He's a sell on the list for the argument, for the purposes of the argument.
You've also got the other situation. It has happened to clubs before when we try to hang on to Bale and Modric. We know that if Madrid really want one, now they've got Trent in. If they really want a centre back, you could, if you're Levy, you can hold the player to his contract, knowing that in a year's time Madrid would have gone and got their centre back, and now he's a year older. So you can apply that sort of a pressure. Obviously, you don't want players at the club.
I hear you, mate. But we can go off on a million different tangents on the what the other options are. But for the purposes of the show, we're assuming that we're going to sell him. to figure out what else we're going to do. Right. So on the presumption we're going to sell him, you would want 75 million, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And Michael, you would want 60, 65. Okay.
I would want 80, right? But I think the realistic
but
one
you would like
is 60, right?
Fair enough. I hear you. Look, we're splitting the hairs here, but like we're just going to.
Of course.
Drew, sort of quick thoughts on Romero, mate, because others will be here for 10 hours.
Right.
Romero, and then I'll let you have the first crack on Bissouma, who's the next name on my list of players to go.
All right. I'll be brutally honest. I've kind of got splinters with the guy. Like, for the reasons that he's so good, I love him and I'd like him to stay. If his head's not in it and he's already been turned, then we might as well just get rid. And for the fact that you're going to make money, and Spurs notoriously don't make money on players, at least we're going to make some money from him. I could see a deal somewhere. If it's for someone like PSV or Real Madrid, I can see it being 60 million rising to 75 with a Champions League and a league win, something like that. I don't think it will be, I think it'll be pretty reasonable. But yeah, somewhere between 60 and 65 on the low end. And I would say, 75, 80 at an absolute push. But that would have to be with, that'd have to be part of the contract with wins and stuff like that. I wouldn't expect it to be that high right out of the gate.
Would you expect Daniel Levy to accept 70 million for him?
Given our past exploits and lack of ability of being able to do that, and not getting rid of Dele when we could have got peak money for him, and not getting rid of Eriksen when we could have got peak money for him, I would hope that they would learn their lesson. And if the player cannot be swayed into, having his head brought back into the game, I would hope for the benefit of the club, he says, all right, let's just, do you know what I mean? Because here's the thing. I feel like he's been trying to do things a little differently. Whether it's worked or not is, another question. But I would like to think he would take it.
Okay, so on that basis, then, I'm going to round it down again. I went from 85. I was trying to meet you in the middle, you lousy people. I went from 85 to 75. I'm actually going to round it off at 70, okay? And that's as low as I'm going to go. As low as you can't argue with that. 70 million for Romero. Next up, Drew, Bissouma. 1 year left on his contract. It cost us 25. The guy's been a flagrant disappointment for me. A player that, it doesn't matter what channel you look at, it doesn't matter what way they lean on Tottenham generally, but everybody, when we signed him, was like 25 million for Bissouma. That's a steal. Right. That's pretty incredible. But ultimately, he's been a massive flop. I believe a horrendous flop. I think he's clumsy. I think he hasn't got two brain cells between his ears, and I think we need to free up a spot in the midfield for what my summer looks like. And so I've written down, what did I write? I think I said £15 million initially, and then I talked myself up to £20 million for the tweet. Between 15 and 20 is my valuation. What do you think for Bissouma?
Yeah, I can't. I think if we got 15 to 20, we'd be lucky, especially with a year left on the contract. But I would be happy with that. I mean, again, I feel like Levy, or there's going to be. I think the tagline for this transfer is probably going to be Spurs are looking to get their money back, or they want, somewhere between 20 and 25, some like 22. I think if we get 15 to 20 for him, I think we just count our chickens and be gone. Just accept it and run. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Looks fair. That's
all right, ones and zeros, guys. Are we in the right ballpark? One in the comment section. One for 15 to 20. If you say zero, tell me what you think we could get him for, and bear in mind that he would be a natural good fit for maybe a team coming up that have got suddenly an extra 80 million quid or whatever for their promotion. I'm going to come up to you again for this one, Michael. Is it Michael or Mikel, by the way?
So I have a Polish name, right? It's Michał, but I always say Michael because it's easier for English-speaking people to just say Michael, right?
Okay.
That's why
I used to have a Bulgarian flatmate who was Michael but Michal, so I'll go call you
probably
Michal.
more like Michał, right? Because it's
Michał,
like Bulgarian,
exactly.
it's like more Eastern.
I'm happy to give the little tour and spit on that yang on the name. I'll come to you, mate. Michal, Bissouma, what sort of money would? First of all, are you okay selling him? Second of all,
definitely.
What money would you
I
accept?
think, that the ironic thing quickly is that before the season started, I felt like the midfield was our strongest part, and I felt like we were struggling in the front line especially, and in the back line a bit, right? Whereas I think the consensus after this season will be probably that midfield was our weakest part, right? Because like Bissouma and Bentancur failed miserably to get to the expectations we had of them. Same thing with Maddison, he's on and off. And the kids, I think Berghvall is a brilliant talent, but I cannot rely on him to keep us fighting for European places. He's too young for that. He's not experienced enough. But so based on that, I would definitely focus our like transfer targets on the midfield in the summer, and preferably I would sell both Bentancur and Bissouma. But if I were to choose
on
one,
my list as well.
yeah.
He's on my list
But
as well.
if I were to choose one, and I think the club will only sell one of them, I think Bissouma will be the one to go.
For how much?
15 to 20. I think the valuation is spot on. I don't think we can get more for any of them. Although, like some of the prices with some of the players that even last summer, like some of the prices that Ipswich paid for players were a little bit of a eyebrow raiser. Like you are paying 30 million for that guy or 40 million for that guy. So maybe we can get more. But I wouldn't be mad if we sold him for like 15. I wouldn't be mad if we sold him for 10, to be honest. I just don't think the guy is good enough, and his head is not in the right space, in my opinion, to play for us. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if we got rid.
Just whilst I have you then, Bentancur, what sort of valuation are you playing? I know I hear you that he's like the second name on the midfield squad roster list to go. I agree. What sort of price would you put on his head?
I'm not sure. Like, if you could remind me what's his contract situation, because I think he has a year left, right? In the summer, a year or two.
I don't know actually.
I think. Because like my answer depends greatly on that. Because if it's like
got a year,
I think it's a year, right?
And I think he'll stay. And they've offered him a contract, so I think he'll stay simply because, like, fresh start at his age. I think he'll stay.
Yeah. So.
But if we were selling, carry on.
Yeah, if it's a year, then I think same evaluation as Bissouma. I don't think you can ask for more than like 15, 20 million for him, especially considering we bought him for like 19 or something, right?
16,
so
I think it was.
Yeah, 16 or something like that. So I don't think he warrants a price increase, even with like the inflation of prices. I know we bought him like 2.5 years ago, but with the amount of injuries and all that stuff around him, I don't think you can ask for more than 15 million. And again, I would be fine if we sold him for that, right? Because like I think the money will recuperate from most likely selling Romero. I think he will be gone this summer. Bissouma and Bentancur, and the money the club has, even though we won't be in Europe, I think this will be enough to buy good players, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 15 million. I'm okay, super okay with that.
Okay,
I'm done with that.
What do you mean?
Sorry,
for Bentancur?
Yeah,
for Bissouma?
yeah. No, I'm done with Bissouma. But like all players and managers that I've seen over the decades of supporting this club, I mean, I will support them while at the club. But I'm done with Bissouma. But I think us fans suffer with what I call perception deception when it comes to valuation, because we see them when they're in poor form and all that. We go, yeah, if you're lucky to get 5 mil or 10 mil for him and things like that, Sean. But the issue is you've got to look at what the outside buying club is looking for on that player, whether they think they can get a better tune out of that player, and what their valuation of the player is. I think we tend to, as fans, devalue players because we know they're on the list or we're going to get rid of them. So naturally we devalue them. And no, I think Bentancur's easily a 30. I mean, he could do a fantastic.
Even with the 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah. I think he's that good a player when he's on form. I thought he's been inconsistent this season, but against Brentford away, he held it. He's not really a number 6, and I think he's suffering from the same thing all the midfielders are suffering from, which is like a lack of confidence and a lack of not having like the same playmates alongside them, So, and I think this is affected, and it's just been a total shit show. Let's be fair, right? So that's why I think we tend to undervalue players? I don't have to chat.
Well, I think Tottenham fans generally, well, like most people in life, I think that I've used this phrase a lot this week. I think that there is that kind of Harrods Tupperware concept, right? With some of like players that play for Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Matisse Tell. No way he's 60 million quid. No way he's 60 million pound, right? No way is that guy anything like that based on what we've seen of him. But because he comes from the Bayern Munich youth system, the grass is always greener. Oh, he must be brilliant because Bayern Munich put up with him for 5 years from 14 to 19 or whatever else. I don't subscribe to that. I just look at the players on what I've seen of them. And obviously, you pay more attention to players that are in your own crop than you do elsewhere. And that's why I was saying what I said about Eze. And obviously, Eze's completely mudded me recently with his form. But I think that if you pay attention to players too closely, you're always going to see the fallibilities of them. And if you don't watch them as closely as you do your own crop, then you're only going to see the highlight reels, and then kind of reflect on those things. So I agree with you, Adrian, in that Bentancur is worth more than Bissouma, but in terms of is he double? Is he like 30 million pound with the year left on his contract? I'm not so sure. What I've done is I've adjusted my price point to Romero 70, Bissouma 15 to 20, Bentancur 20 to 25, just based on if that's like lower end for Bissouma, higher end for Bentancur. Are you okay with that, Adrian? And if so, you're okay with that, Michael? Yeah. Drew, are you okay with that on Bentancur, mate? And Bissouma.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the Bissouma stuff for sure. The Bentancur, I mean, over the last few weeks, I've said that I think he's, I don't know, if he was that good a player when he left Juventus, having won 3 Scudettos with him, he'd have gone to a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid like Toni Kroos did, or, like those sorts of players do. I don't know that he has flashes of brilliance. I just don't know that he's consistently brilliant. So I just, for me, as much as I've been screaming out for some sort of experience in the midfield, I just don't know that he's it. So 1 year left on the contract. I mean, if we got our money back for him, I wouldn't complain. There's not one I'm expecting to make too much money on.
Is there a scenario where we are giving him a new contract now so that we can sell him? Maybe similar to Sonny, that we don't want it to run down, but like you're just kind of protecting your asset a little bit by giving him a couple of million as a signing fee, but that ultimately you would, even if he signs the deal in the next week or two, but then you're still happy to look at offers. Similar to what's happening maybe with Josh Kimmich in Bayern Munich, right? For all intents and purposes, Josh Kimmich is surplus to requirements at Bayern Munich, but yet he's just signed a contract for another 4 years. So is that just Bayern Munich's way of protecting their valuation, giving the player a kick, and then also at the same time willing to look at offers in the summer, but knowing that they're not going to get priced down because of contract expiration proximity?
I guess with those sorts of deals confuse me a little bit, Sean. Maybe you can, I don't know. For me, I see the benefit from the club that owns the asset, but from a club that's sniffing around or looking, I don't see how that persuades them to make an offer that would have to be more than the offer they would be making had he not signed the contract. Does that make sense? I just don't, all of a sudden you're going, well, maybe we can get this guy on a free or we can get him cheap because he's got 6 months left. And then he signs another 2-year deal and all of a sudden he's 10, 15 million more expensive than he was a week ago. So I can only see that benefiting, the club that owns the asset. And at that point,
good point.
I feel like
the player could go, well, why would I sign that contract when basically you're ruling me out of getting my signing fee?
Right. The contract that he signs would have to make up that, right? So, it seems a little bit, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's true.
Just real quickly, why has Eze mudded you? Did you?
Because I said a couple of days ago, before the England game on Friday night, I was speaking on this channel with Johnny, I think it was, and I said, because Johnny obviously knows people at CAA base, and he's part of that crew, and Johnny's always like, I really want to get Eberechi Eze, and I said, well, look, my take is, and there was a lady in the chat, I forget who it was, and she said just quietly, I don't think Eze is the guy that everyone thinks he is. And I said, you know what? I actually fundamentally agree with you. Not that I think he's a bad player. I think he's a really good player. But do I think that he has his trajectory, right? People that don't pay attention, again, saying about this now. People that don't pay attention to other clubs' players as much as they do their own, they might be like guilty sometimes of seeing and hearing a lot about the rise to prominence of a player, and then because you don't watch that club every day as closely as you do your own, when that guy sometimes when the trajectory doesn't when it tapers off a little bit. So this as they went like 17, 18, 19, whoosh, everyone's aware of him. I think over the last 2 years, he's sort of done that a little bit, right? A lot of injuries and stuff, but he hasn't really kicked on at the same level, which is obviously natural. Like, you're not going to continue to do this. It's not a logarithmic. You're not going to be that unless you're Ronaldo or Messi, whatever. And so I just said quietly, I think that as people reflect on Eze as the guy that they remember hearing about smashing it up as an 18-year-old, the guy's now 22 and he's not quite kicking at the same level with the injuries. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I'm just saying that people, I think, reflect on him being as good as they thought he was going to be at 18 because you're not paying attention as much. And then as soon as I said that, I came off the stream, and that night he scored a worldie for England, and then today he scored a worldie for Palace, and then then the assist, and it's just like sod law.
Well, that's just why I asked. But I mean, for the record, he is 26, not 22.
Right,
He's scored like 2 goals and got 6. Yeah, but 2 goals and 6 assists. If we'd have bought him for 65 mil last summer, and he'd have produced 2 goals and 6 assists, we'd have the pitchforks out. I just wanted, so that's all. That's
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you.
Carry on. I don't want to derail it.
This is the perennial thing, isn't it, with players? It's always the perception of Spurs fans or fans of any other club when they're looking at other teams, how their players are always better than the ones you've got, right? And your perception of them is always higher than it is. And this is when I'm not a stats man. You have to look at the stats, which Drew and me, we are very fact-based fans. But you come back to it and you think, now don't get me wrong, would Eze improve us? Yes, he would, right? But would he deliver? I mean, it would improve us. It'd improve our play. It would improve us a lot. It'd help terrify defenses and things. But so I'll take him, but because I wanted him and Dorgu at the beginning of the summer, apart from Solanke, But but is he a headline maker all the time? And we was hearing all these things about Wall Prowse, weren't we, at Southampton? But the only time he ever made the headline was when he scored a free kick round a wall. I mean, like, that's not enough. But no.
And that wall was appallingly set up, by the way, by Vicario. Absolutely atrocious. All right, let's sort of stick on topic here. So we've got Romero's valuation, Bissouma and Bentancur. I think we're all agreed on that, generally speaking. Let us know in the comments if you fundamentally disagree wildly with 70 million for Romero, 15 to 20 for Bissouma, and 20 to 25 for Bentancur. The last name that I've got on here is, 2 more names, is Richie. I put down as 30 million. And I think that was like most of the journalists think that Tottenham still were hoping to get their money back on him, which is ludicrous. I've dropped it by half, give or take, and said 30 million. I don't know if he's going to dig his feet in the ground here and say, I'm not going to Saudi. Maybe Saudi's the only place that would pay reasonable money for him. But at £30 million, I think that you might be able to get a few bites from a decent level of competition in decent leagues. Michael, what sort of valuation would you go for on Richie? And I hope that you are in agreement that we should sunset that guy's time at Tottenham.
I think he should have been gone the moment we signed him. I never liked him. I never felt he was a good player. I was baffled when we paid 55, 60, 50, whatever it is, right? I think we got our pants pulled down with him, and it turned, thankfully for me and my opinions, it turned out I was right. But I think we should, it should be one of the priorities to sell him. He's taken an international spot at our club, right? Because he's not homegrown, if I remember correctly, even though he was at young age at Watford and all that stuff. But he takes an international spot. He's never available. Even if he is, he doesn't really do anything special to have faith in him. So for me, he should be an immediate sell. And the club, I think the only thing that's standing in the way of him going is whether we accept a big loss on him, right? Because of the money we spent on him, I have a feeling that the club won't be willing to sell him for a lower end fee. Because like for me, right, if it only like was dependent on me, I would sell him for 10 million even, right? I would just get rid of him because I just feel like that there is no value in keeping him, right? Because at least if he was available, like at least if he was a shit player but was available, right? At least you can use him from time to time. You can give 1 or 2 players a rest. You can use him when someone is injured. He doesn't even give us that, right? So for me, there is no value in keeping such a player. So, but I think the club won't, of course, they won't accept anything like that, right? It's not how the world works. So the way I look at it, I agree. If I think one of the lower end Premier League clubs, or maybe like, I'm not sure about clubs abroad, because this is always an issue, right? We always say that Europe is broke when it comes to like Premier League prices. So Spurs probably would want at least like 30 million for him. And I'm not sure which club abroad pays 30 million for Richarlison. This is like twice the transfer record usually for some of those clubs, right? So
correct.
Like Leverkusen is not taking him, Borussia not, right? Juve won't take him. Why would they, right? So you kind of are left with only Premier League as a selling space, or Saudi, right? And with Saudi, it depends if Richarlison wants to go. But I think we should get rid of him, like one of the top priorities of the window to get rid of him. So it's kind of hard to give you an evaluation because, as I said, for me, there is no point in keeping him. I would just get rid of him, even if it was just, mutual agreement to rip the contract up without paying. I seriously, I don't value him at all in the squad. But I think the club would probably want something around like 30-35 million, I guess, for him. And
that's why I deliberately priced him, because I feel the same as you, mate. The second, I remember being in the We Are Tottenham TV WhatsApp group 3 years ago, and as soon as the links emerged, I was like, "What are we doing? Please tell me," because I was like thinking, being the Levy sympathizer or whatever, like that people attribute to me, which isn't true, but whatever. I was like, "Oh God, please don't sign this geezer, because if we do, then I don't have a leg to stand on." And you know what? People went after me anyway for Levy, but they didn't remind me of that one, because I was always fairly honest. I was like, this was a mistake, a massive club mistake. For me, £30 million is the most you can get, and I agree with you, Mikhail, that it's a difficult ask to find too many clubs in Europe that will stump up anything like that for him. But I do also think that there are, he does have Premier League experience. His goals would be invaluable to a team that are fighting a relegation, and those guys come up with a budget that, could make something happen. And he would probably think that if I'm not going to play at Tottenham, which I don't think he will, and especially if I get my way with my incomings that we're going to move on to shortly, then a team like Burnley, a team like Ipswich, if they stay up, a team, one of those sorts of teams. If presuming Liam Delap moves on, for example, then he might go in that direction, and it's a win-win for most clubs. So I value him at 30. Let me know, guys, in the comments. 1's 30 if it's okay with you. 0's if you think it's wild. Adrian, Richarlison, 30 million.
35 to 45 with add-ons, easy.
Okay.
Because if you look at because it's a question of demand, Sean. How many number 9s are out there? Chelsea haven't got one. Arsenal haven't got one. Everton's number 9, is it Calvert-Lewin? He's in the last year of his contract, won't sign, he's going. They're moving into a new stadium. They're going to need a number 9, right? And like you mentioned, Ipswich and all that. So to me, it's a question of demand. I want him gone, right? But I just think because there is a shortage, they'll know this, like the club will know this, and like Saudi, they'd pay that tomorrow anyway, but that's a question of whether he changes his mind, decides to go. But Richarlison was on record of saying he's staying in the Premier League. I think if he goes, he wouldn't mind going back to Everton because he's well, it's again the same there. Half the fans love him, half hate him. But if they're going to lose their number 9 and they've struggled with relegation the last few seasons, some clubs going to be desperate, Sean, for a 9. I mean, you need that. We've missed it. Look with Solanke not in the middle. We've struggled like hell. It's not always. I mean, the modern game is not so much about 20 goals a season from your number 9, isn't it? So it's about being the fulcrum of your attack.
Actually, you say that, mate. I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I did a show on it maybe 6 months ago. The amount of players that you would think of, that the biggest names. Hi, Puddy Cat. Who's that, Drew? Who's that?
This is Derp, and he's called Derp because his eyes are ever so slightly too close together if you look at him square on. But yeah, he's a beautiful cat. He's got a good colour.
Sorry about your genes, man. It's
bless him. Little bit simple, bless him.
Yeah. I think, listen, if you look at the play, like the amount of players, like people will make this assumption, this argument, and I think there's fair value to it, that you don't get the players like you used to back in the day when you had Robbie Keanes and the Defoes and the Owens and all this stuff. There was 20 goals a season in every club. There wasn't. I think Michael Owen only scored 20 goals a season once in his career. I think I might be wrong about saying that. Let me know if I am. Let me know in the comments. But like, there's a lot of players that have this ridiculously wild reputations of being monsters, but in terms of 20 goals a season, rarer than you think, Adrian. But I hear your point about Richarlison, and I think his 10 goals a season or whatever in a fully fit year would be very valuable to a few clubs. But you're saying 35
to 45 add-ons. He did score 13, I think, with Everton in a year. I think.
He's only scored more than 10 once. I think it might have been with Watford. Was it Watford?
It could have been at Watford.
Maybe. Drew, Richarlison?
Sorry, just quickly. Michael Owen, you talking about league goals or total goals?
League goals.
Yeah, he only got to 19 twice, never got to 20.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
Right. Yeah, so
I just think it's the narrative, right?
Thank you, mate. You are my narrative. You are my statistician that brings in the narratives that support the argument.
He's brilliant. Right?
I mean, he only got 28 in his highest season across all competitions. So that's not. I mean, it's good, but it's not crazy, like you say, right?
Yeah,
but
people think of him
60.
as one of the monsters of Premier League's gone past, right? So I just it's finding like a Mo Salah, a Sonny, a Harry Kane, a Kun Aguero. Those sorts of guys are rare breeds, that they weren't that frequent before, and they're certainly less frequent now.
Yeah. As far as Richie, I'll be brutally honest. I can't see it being any more than a loan for this guy. I mean, I'd take 20 or 30 million, but I honestly think that the buying club, I think they're going to want a loan with an option or a loan. I mean, I'd prefer it have to be a loan with an obligation for me, because I don't see any point otherwise. But I just can't see anyone biting the bullet on him with the way he's performed the last 18 months and his record of injuries. Can't see anybody doing it. I feel like you'd be out of your mind. But for the sake of our game,
for the sake of the fictitious hypothetical waffle that we're going through,
25, 30, I guess. So let me just quickly, right, with the way that things are amortized, right, over the course of a contract, we bought him 50 million on a 5-year, so 10 million a season essentially.
Yeah.
So if for argument's sake, he's been here 3 years, so now on the books he's worth 20, right? So if we got 20, we essentially break even on Richarlison. Is that kind of how it?
Yeah. So if you're excluding his salaries and his bonuses and stuff.
Right. So yeah, I mean, if we got somewhere between, if we made the 20 million back, the amortized 20 million and maybe got another 5 or 10 on top, I'd be happy with that. I feel for the guy. I wish it wasn't, as injury prone. He scored some lovely goals, but I just, for where we want to be, I just don't think he's it.
All right. So you know what? On that basis, then we're going to stick with these numbers, right? Just to be fair, reasonable as best as possible. So we're not dealing in the worlds of make believe, even though we are dealing in the worlds of make believe. It's all as reasonable as possible. 70 for Romero, 20 for Bissouma, 25 for Bentancur, and 25 for Richie, right? Which gives me a roundup of 90, 115, 105. So about 130 million, right? That we can all agree is somewhere, maybe there's a give or take of whatever, 10% standard deviations. Last name I've got for you is Ben Davies. I stuck down as 5 million. I think he's still got a year on his contract. He's a valuable player that could go from somewhere. I don't want to spend too long on him because 5 million is irrelevant. Yeah. But generally speaking, I've made room in the squad by moving him on. And are you guys fundamentally opposed to the idea of like a cheeky 5 bar for Ben Davies? Is that okay?
No, I'm not against it.
Okay,
not against it.
All right. So Davies 5 million. So we've got 70 for Romero, 90 including Bissouma, 105 including Bentancur, 130 for Richie in total, 135. So 135 million pounds, right?
Yeah, we're getting into back to Brian Gill.
I haven't even included Brian Gill. I haven't included Fraser Foster. I haven't included Valise. I haven't included
Solomon, right?
Solomon.
Yeah, Brian Hill's got ACL anyway, so he's not. He wouldn't.
Yeah, he's not. He's a season injury. Yeah.
So we're at 135 million pound, give or take, on reasonable. And it's not. You're not asking to sell the squad. You're asking to sell 4 or 5 players, right?
Yeah.
So if we can think that's reasonable, what I've also done is my due diligence on the numbers, looking at where Tottenham are at financially without European football, looking at Deloitte's numbers, looking at Swiss Ramble's numbers, looking at European qualification, excluding European getting to the final, but just like the prize money that comes from it, and the stadium and the twice as many events, all that stuff. And I've given us, and like I say, could be wildly wrong, but I haven't been in the past. Whenever I've given a number, I've been very close to it. And I've given us £80 million net spend wiggle room, right, for this summer, which gives us £215 million. Okay. So is everyone okay working on that just as a presumption that we're going to sell those 5 players just to move the conversation along?
Yeah.
So 215 million, right?
More than enough to make this team competitive, by the way. More than enough.
Now, where I've gone with it,
the deals you bring are amortized. It's not like if you buy 4 players for 50 mil, you're paying all the money in one go, are you?
Well, yeah, but at the same,
it's a simplification, I guess, right?
Forget about amortization, because if you're going to bring in amortization, you also have to factor in that everyone that we've bought previously, you also are paying off those numbers as well, right?
Yes,
so
and we are also not getting 70 million for Romero, more like 15 this year, right? And then 15 next year and all that stuff. So it's a simplification, 100%. I guess, right?
Massive simplification. So bearing in mind that we've lost our main centre back, our number 1 choice centre back, we've lost a striker, we've lost a centre back, and we lost 2 midfielders. I'm making the argument here, and you can disagree as much as you want, and we'll go around the traps here. But I'm making the argument that we need a left-footed centre back, and also a left back, excuse me, to compete with Udogie, on the presumption that yes, Jed Spence can play there, but he can also play right back. I've made the assumption that we need a midfielder. I've made the assumption that we need a winger. I've made the assumption that we need a striker, and I've made the assumption that we need that we have to figure out the either the Danso deal, which is we haven't paid for, and also figuring out what to do with Matisse Tell. So he is not included in my squad lists that I'm going to put forward, right? So Danso, I believe we owe £20 million on. Here's the names that I've got as ideal, I think, value attribution, and I think these are reasonable prices for these players. And you can write these down.
Sean,
I'm just quick,
did you caveat this with we don't have European football next season? This is based on
no European football. Okay. This is no European football,
cool.
Right? So this is 1 game a week, 38 games, and hopefully 10 more, whatever in the cup.
Yeah. All right.
So I've got Diomande as Ousmane Diomande as the Sporting centre back, who's right-footed but can play right side or left side. And I think this guy is unbelievably talented. He's 21 years old, so he fits the age profile. And if you guys haven't seen, then go and check him out on Wyscout if you have it, or YouTube if you don't. But for me, I think this player he's balanced. I think he stays on his feet, right, which is a rarity for a centre back that can do what he can do. He's got a wonderful range of passing on him. He's not in the same ilk as Romero with his ball at his feet, but he's a 21-year-old. He's sensational in the air. He's incredibly strong. His timing, his anticipation, his ability to read the game. I really, really like this guy. Now, the valuation that I've seen that's for him is 50 million quid. Okay. For the same 50 million pound, you could be looking at including add-ons, including signing fees. You could look at a Jonah Tarr, someone like him that is kind of like equitable in those sorts of standards, right? Tall, strong, fast, good on the feet, good on the ball, balanced, play right or play left, no problem. I've also thrown in as the centre back at 50 million pound. This is the sort of budget that I'm attributing to that centre back option. I'm also throwing in players like Jared Branthwaite, and I'm also throwing in players like Mark Guehi. Right, I don't know what the valuations are. We can argue up or argue down for some of these guys, but generally speaking, we're looking for a player that can replace Romero. So there is a someone that's competent enough immediately to come in and compete for the first team spot. But that also, and when I've got I'll show you in a minute my two squads. That it doesn't matter because we have a Danso behind that guy, or we have a Vuskovic or whatever behind Van der Ven, etc. If you were to go down the path of a David Hanko from Feyenoord, he's not going to cost you as much. He's going to cost you 40 million, and I've been generous on the 40. I think you can get him for 35. But he can also play as a left back, right? So he's like a Van der Ven that can play. He's left-footed. He's brilliant on the ball. He can run. He's pacey. He's height. He's brilliant in the air. All those things. I'm a massive fan of this guy. He's 27, so maybe last big sort of move. So that's the centre-back option, right? And you can fill in who you want there, but I've attributed around £50 million, 55, 60, whatever. We can go up or down 10%, 20%. But ultimately, by bringing that player in, especially if it's someone that can double up as a fullback, then you have the option to be able to then move Van der Ven out, or Jed Spence can play versatile, Hanko can play it. You have within your squad there enough versatility at the back line to be able to do that. That also, by the way, includes the promotion of a Vuskovic and or a Phillips into our squad. So on that basis, you then have a back line that essentially has, and I'll stop there. I won't move forward the other options, but as a back line, right back, left back, centre backs, you have Van der Ven, insert Hanko, Guehi, whoever there, Branthwaite there. Branthwaite can do the same thing, left back, left side, centre back. Right, you have Jed Spence that can play left back, right back. You have Pedro Porro, you have Udogie, and then that also includes Danso, and then on top of that you have the if they're ready, the inclusion of one or two of the youth guys, of Vuskovic if he's ready, Phillips if he's ready, those sorts of players, right? And so for me, that gives us more than enough options, more than enough versatility, more than enough value that you can sell Romero, replace one player, and then if you pick the right one, if you get the job done, you make a net profit on the trade, which gives you more wiggle room for further up the pitch. And on top of that, you have more than enough spots in the left back, the right back, and the centre back spots. Let me know your thoughts. I'll start with you on this one, Drew.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Drew.
I muted the mic.
I like the idea. I like the idea of the promotion of the youth, especially if we're going to go down. Especially if we're theorising there's no European football. Diamonde, I think, is going to be a tough one because I think already reports today Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United are all sniffing around him and are all ready to pay 50 million. Where they're all getting the money from.
Quickly, sorry, I've got to include that. My consideration there is based on that there's going to be a merry-go-round, a domino effect that all starts with where Romero goes.
Right.
I think Romero is the biggest name in the centre-back space that probably moves on. Where he goes will trigger a lot of other activity. Yes, you might maybe that you could include Huijsen, the Bournemouth guy, in that list of players, right? I'm just saying 50, 60 million attributable to a here now, ready now centre-back that in an ideal world could also double up as a left-sided left back. So it doesn't have to be Diamandi, but like the kind of the domino effect will go where it goes.
Right.
Because there's a lot of teams that are looking for centre-backs. But I think it all starts with where Romero goes, is what I'm saying.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. Fair enough. I absolutely think, and I think especially if we're thinking that potentially Ben Davies, if we get a cheeky bid, then fair enough. I personally see him staying and probably retiring and doing the coaching staff thing. So I think we've got him for another year. But on him going, we would definitely need someone else left-sided, because I think we're all in agreement that VDV, he's unfortunately struggling to do a full season. Even with no European football, couple of cup runs, hopefully. I mean, I still think that's a lot of games for him. So if you think you're going to have to nurse him for potentially another season, left-sided centre-back.
Not all about Dragusin. I haven't even included Dragusin into that.
Right. Well, so left-sided centre-back that could cover left-back. So Udogie, Spence. Obviously, Spence can cover left back. I actually think, although I say this, I think based on the fact that I've just not seen him enough at right back, but I think he's very good at left back because I think he cuts in on his natural foot, but he's not afraid to overlap and go past Sonny to the byline. And I think that's exceptional, especially, I think it's not bad being able to have a right side, right-footed left back. So, but I think we still need cover as a left-footed left back, centre back. So somebody there. I think right back's covered because
like a David Hanko, right, which will be the cheaper of those options.
Right, I love this guy. I think
I do as well.
He's so good. He's so good, Michael. He's so good, mate.
And
I don't understand why he's still playing in Holland.
Super cheap, by the way, compared to the options of 70-60 million pound signings from the Premier League, right? And the versatility of him just being as comfortable on the left back and left centre back. I think that's the perfect deal because he's way more.
He's like a Milenkovic. Everyone in the fan base was like Milenkovic is going to be a beast. And none of the big clubs went for him. He ends up going to Nottingham Forest, and he's probably on the Premier League team of the season list. Right, he's so good. But fans knew it, but none of the clubs did. Forest did, right?
Mr. Trick.
I think that David Hanko is one of these. I know he's getting on a little bit, but
he's 27. I think 27 is prime, right? If you can get him now, the idea is, and I think we're crying out for that. We need a couple of 27, 26, well, maybe 25 to 30-year-olds, right? Really? Especially if you're thinking that we're actually,
but not
we're get rid of the players we're getting rid of.
You don't want someone that's just because they're older, they're leaders. Jack Grealish for me is like a party boy who's lost interest a little bit in the game. But David Hanko is professional. He's the earliest. I watched a documentary on Feyenoord last week. He's the first guy at the training ground every day. First guy putting out the cones, like John Terry-esque back in the day. John Terry used to do that, right? And so did Conte when he was the coach. You need someone that's with age comes wisdom, with age comes maturity, with age you hope also comes appreciation of how much time you have left in the game. And someone like Jack Grealish doesn't represent that, but someone like Hanko does for me. And I think that he would just be, if he doesn't come to Tottenham, he'll go somewhere else in the Premier League, and we'll all be saying we told you so.
Well, why didn't we sign him, right? Again, it's And by the way, just selfishly a bit, I think this team needs a bit of a Slav dickhead energy. I'm honest with it, right? Because I think on a serious note, I think plenty of us have made remarks about this team being a bit soft, right? Not I don't, when someone puts it on us, when someone fights against us, I think we kind of retract back into the shell and we aren't as expansive. And I feel like guys like Hanko, however you want to pronounce it. I think it's Hansko, right? Because he's Slovakian. The C is not the K, right? But because it's similar pronunciation to Polish, so I guess it's Hansko, right? But but coming back to the topic, right? I think, as I said, the versatility and the quality is one thing, but I think the character and the willingness to fight. I know it's a simple thing to point out in a player, but I think this team lacks it massively. And I think
he's captain, isn't he? Captain.
And I'm not sure. No, he's not the captain of the national side, because I wanted to say that, but I think someone else is the captain of.
No, Feyenoord, isn't he?
He's captain of Feyenoord.
Yeah,
but I was thinking about the national team, but I think it's someone else, if I remember correctly. Nevertheless, I think we need players like him to just be solid and be willing to lead.
And I think you're right in terms of the if we're moving budgets around on a hypothetical screen just for shits and giggles. It would be lovely to be able to, if you do sell Romero, again, this is all make-believe, but if you do sell Romero and you can get someone in that is mature, can bring that wisdom, that he's not going to let you down, that he's not slow, he's tall, he's brilliant in the air, and I think that Tottenham aerially are just so vulnerable, both offensively and defensively. We don't do enough with it in the air at the top end, and we don't do anywhere near good enough at the back end. For me, plus his ability to step out with the ball, he's a brilliant player. And of all the names I mentioned there, like the likes of, Branthwaite's going to come with the English tax, right? Huijsen from Bournemouth would be ideal, but he's going to cost you 60 million quid, 70 million quid, whatever, right? If we're trying to like fudge the numbers to make the money work, to Michael's point, like 40 million pound for Hanko, which I think Finer would bite your hand off for, because Europe is broke, then that allows you to then move money a little bit easier at in more expensive areas. Sorry, Adrian.
The only thing I think we've been interested with Hincapie, Huijsen and all that, well, Guayi, is because of the homegrown issue, right?
Yeah.
Which might come
I think we're okay with homegrown in the Premier League, right?
Okay now, right?
I don't want us to go down the homegrown issue for the sake of bringing in a better quality player. I mean, I love Hanko. I've been banging on about him. But if you're talking about in the Premier League and the tax are paying 60 million for Guay and things like that, I'm going to buy a Leverkusen and I'm going to put a bid in for Hincapie. Left-footed, he can play left-back as well. He's 24, Ecuadorian. And I like their other two centre-backs. We've been recently linked with Tapsoba, and everyone's interested in Tar because it's the end of his contract. And he would bring all those right-footed, like Tapsoba.
Jonah Tommy, I've been on Jonah Tar for like 4 years, mate. That guy is so underrated. No one talks about him.
Experience. Half the German fan base dislike him, but it's the same with every fan base, isn't it? But his experience and his numbers. You bring Tar and he brings solidity.
Jonah Tar is brilliant.
Yeah.
But he's not as good on the left of a three as he is in the centre or on the right of a three.
But I'd want Hanko, and with the money we're talking about, 215 million sales or with add-ons, if you're going to bid
135 in sales and then 80 with the budget that I assume we've got.
If you're going to pay, I mean, Hanko would probably cost 45 mil. Because of his age,
at best, I think even lower.
Yeah, maybe. So that would be fantastic because you'd get more for a Romero if you sold him. But if we're talking at numbers you're talking, Sean, which are no reason to disbelieve you, I mean, like, I'm going for Hincapie because one, he's 24. You give him a longer contract. You can give him.
But Hincapie's going to cost you probably 65, right?
Yeah, I'd pay it.
No, I hear that, and that's fine. That's, by the way, no. This is all just make believe anyway.
Yeah.
My question mark around Hincapie is: didn't he turn us down before? I think he turned us down a few times in his, at least according to rumors. Listen, I love the player. I think he's class. But where I've gone with this as we move up the pitch, right, is I've got some big ambitions for what we can do in the midfield and in the forward and in the striker role, and. I've even allocated I won't try and jump the gun here, but Jonathan David for me is a player that I've come to really. I used to sit there and say I don't get why he has the numbers that he does. I think he's clumsy. I think a lot of it's fortuitous. He's proven me wrong. I think he's improved remarkably over the last 12 months. But I've even allocated 20 to 25 million pound for him in my budget here because even though he's free, you still pay 60% of that asking price. It just goes to the agent and the family and the player rather than to the club. So I've allocated budget for some of the players at the top end of the pitch that I think are just as important. That if we go for a Hincapie, then my numbers don't work. So I'm happy if you would rather do Hincapie. Yeah, go on. Sorry,
I'd be happy with. I mean, I'd take I'd take Hanko. I mean, but it's like as an option. If we can't get him. I'd be going all out and getting Hincapie.
I think there is one issue with Hincapie, but I love the guy, by the way, because Bundesliga is the second league I watch. I think he's a brilliant guy. I have just two small issues with him. First of all, I think he's not as physically imposing as other guys we mentioned. I think he's like 1.80 m, and he suits. I think he suits more either the wing back or the left-sided centre back in the back three role, and is given a lot more abilities to go forward. But also it's about his abilities going forward, not necessarily. I don't think he's the best defender, and I would rather go for a bit of a defensive type of player because Udogie is so offensive and Van de Ven is so quick. I think we need more of a solid centre back. And my second issue is the fact that he's playing a lot in Leverkusen, right? And I'm not sure whether we could pull a player from Leverkusen, right? Because if you look at it, he's playing for a champion, like a previous champion. Right now, they will probably finish second, right, this season. But it's one of the best teams in Germany. And I'm not sure whether we can pull a player like him to Spurs team.
Champions League
12th,
guaranteed
right?
football.
Champions League guaranteed, exposure.
And he earns a lot. Right? I think he's one of the highest earners at Leverkusen. Am I wrong?
When we tried to sign him like 2 years ago, I think they signed him to a new contract that made him one of the better paid players, right? Because I think Wirtz earns more, and I think like Xhaka or someone else, right? But he's one of the better paid players at that club, right? So as much as I would love Hincapie, I don't think we can like price him away, which is also why I really love the idea of Hansko, because I just don't see a world where he rejects us to stay at Feyenoord, right? We might have competition from other teams, which is a different like kettle of fish. But if we were to discuss every single transfer based on this,
we'll be here until the summer.
And but I think purely in vacuum we can like take Hansko from Feyenoord and they will bite our hand off for like 35 million pounds, and he won't have objections with joining us. Whether guys like Hincapie, I think it would be a bit of a step down. I'm not saying Leverkusen is a bigger club than Spurs, but now they are better.
They're doing bigger things at the moment.
They're doing bigger things.
I feel like there's also, I think you have to be a little careful. And I don't want to take anything away from Leverkusen. I mean, they're doing wonderful things and have done the last couple of years. But is this not a prime example of the pieces being put into place perfectly, especially in the fact that they not play like a back three or like a back five wing backs? And I just think you have to be careful. I mean, look at Dragusin. He's really struggled going from a back three in Italy to a high line or medium high line back four in England. And I just think there's something to be said potentially. I think a couple of people in the chat have mentioned it. I want to just give a quick, I think it was, forgive me, I can't find it, but somebody said, is it not worth, at least getting something Premier League proven, so you haven't got to wait too much for that overlap of being
sort of players in the Premier League that play a high line back four. The teams that do that are the teams that are above you anyway in the pecking order, right? Like you look at Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, by the way, a lot of people think, obviously, I've said this 1,000 times. A lot of people think I always just like defend Daniel Levy. I don't. I'm happy to throw mud at him. It's just people that only watch me on neutral channels when I'm rolled out to their channel because Daniel Levy's in conversation, and then for the purposes of balance, I end up defending him. But I'm always happy to throw the shade when due. There are very few chairmen that I think are significantly more accomplished in recent track records, the overall role of being an owner. But one of them is Nottingham Forest's owner. I think he's sensational, right? And their transfer record, which is what matters for most, has been impeccable over the last 24 months. They came up to the Premier League. They only had 8 regular first team players. The rest of them were on loan. They then they bought in like 20 players. They stayed up. They had the 4-point penalty, I think it was, in the end, and then they went again. And look how fantastic they're doing, right? But I don't think that their football would be satisfactory to Tottenham fans. But you look at some of the players that they have bought in, and they've been also the beneficiary of having relationships. Their owner has a lovely relationship with most of the other Premier League teams because he doesn't see negotiations as a zero-sum game. He's happy to, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours back later, whatever else. But you have players like Murillo, right, and Milenkovic at the back. Their defensive line is incredible. It's so good, so strong. Now, can Nottingham Forest keep hold of Murillo? We'll see. Will he come to Tottenham? Doubt it. No chance, right? I don't even think Tottenham would even be looking in that direction because, to your point, mate, Drew, the back three model is utilized by many clubs, not just clubs that play defensive football, but it's used as a tool that allows one of the back three that have the ability on the ball to push out. Now, this is where I'm like Michael. I don't have a problem with Ange. Where I do call him out is that when he says one thing to defend one accusation, he opens himself up by opening up the truth about another. And when he said, I said this 1,000 times, when he said the injury accusation, right? The injuries are not my fault. You're blaming me for injuries because the training regime is too hard. That can't be true because since October we haven't barely trained because we're playing 2 games a week. Okay, cool. if that's true that we haven't trained, then why are you implementing unpracticed formations against Villa in the cup, against Liverpool in the cup, and most importantly against Everton away, where you went to a back three for 45 minutes, you conceded 2 goals, it was embarrassing, and then you shelved that entire concept, never to be seen the light of day again? Like, why? If what you're saying is true about injuries, then you're not prepared to play a back three. And maybe the reason why it was so embarrassingly open was because the players were asked to play something that they haven't practiced for. 2 things can't be true at the same time. Either you're lying about the injuries or you're lying about the preparation. Like, sorry, Ange, but like, we're not all idiots. And if you're going to say one thing, I'm going to put that into the context of what else is going on. And to me, the back three model doesn't have to be a defensive formation. It doesn't have to be a boring version of football. You have to open your mind to the idea that, do you have a squad capable of playing a back three wing back system? And Tottenham's system, even with the squad that we have, in my opinion, with the likes of Archie Gray, capable of being a centre-back and a ball-playing midfielder, the likes of Romero being the best ball-playing centre-back, in my opinion, in the league, better than Van Dijk, better than any of those at Arsenal, then I think that the idea that you shelve a failed concept after 45 minutes when you only implemented it in the only place in the league where you would go away from home and not play a back three because of Everton's style is mind-bogglingly crazy. So, like, the idea that a back three is solely used for defensive teams is stupid. Doesn't have to be that way as long as you have the tools in your toolbox to be able to make use of it. And it doesn't even have to use it.
Right, and it doesn't even have to start as a back three, right? Because I can remember many times Pochettino 4-2-3-1, and you'd see one of the defensive midfielders drop into make a back three so that Walker and Rose could bomb on and do their thing. So, and I guess, you know, when you look at things like that and you see Ange's rigid structure, that's when you sort of begin to question it a little bit, I guess.
I'm not a fan of that 5 system, I've got to admit it, but I said it before VDV came and I got pelters for it. I said in Italy, Romero played in a back three and he would step into midfield. And we've seen Romero go forward, score 5 goals, good in the air, you know, good on the ball. He's not a super press breaker like, say, Bissouma could do on his day, you know, when he's at his best or something like that. But Sean, I agree in a way. You could keep your fullbacks. You could play VDV.
But it's not just the fullbacks, right? If you go to a back three,
and you could play Romero as the number 6. But now it depends on your perception of a number 6.
Experimentation, this analysis of like the back three thing that we've just given up on, doesn't that allow all of our fullbacks that are currently being mispositioned anyway? Pedro Porro. Imagine how good Pedro Porro would be if he didn't have to have the responsibility to track back and sprint back 1,000 times. The fact that guy hasn't had a season-finishing injury.
You just made a case of why you have the number 6. Because the number 6...
Or the centre-back that moves forward, right? It doesn't matter. Either or. Yeah, I agree. Either or.
So like, the number... I mean, I'm probably stating the obvious, but the number 6, if he's deep line defensive, he covers the left back and right back. His main job...
Destiny Udogie can do everything that he does without having to worry so much about getting back.
Up play and laying off the ball. The main job is to stop, say, an opposing number 10 like a Bobby Firmino or someone, Ericsson, playing through your lines to be able to anticipate and spot the danger. Romero's got all that in his locker. I think he would make a brilliant 6. Don't think it's likely to happen.
Well, but Archie Gray is the obvious... In the world where we're selling Romero, we're looking forward thinking, right? Like Archie Gray can do that.
Or Berghvall.
Well, I don't think Berghvall can play in a back. I wouldn't put Berghvall in a centre back role.
I've seen both as 8s as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Michael, by the way, quickly before we move on with the move up the pitch in terms of acquisitions, we're talking about the back three model here. Are you a subscriber to the? I'm using your language. Are we a subscriber to the concept of that giving up the back three because it didn't work against Everton was madness?
Mate, and also, like, take into consideration, we played back three with Archie Gray, Ben Davies, and Dragusin, right? We didn't play it with Van de Ven, Romero, and Danso, right? Yeah, which is also a point to make, right? But I generally, I think when people hear back three, they have like a parking the bus system in mind, right?
Right, correct.
But if you actually look at it, there are so many different variations of back three where you can actually play really offensive football, and you just because people, when they hear a back three, they also imagine wing backs being like in the same line as the three center backs, right? Whereas you can play something that's more of a 3-5-2, something
fluid.
like or a 3-4-3, something like United play or try to play, right? Or like or for a better example, because it's not a good example to mention a team that's also doing shit, right? But
Brentford can do it, right? There's lots of teams that do it.
Amorim's Sporting Lisbon played a 3-4-3 where the wing backs were extremely offensive and they weren't really participating in the defensive side unless they had to, right? But also, if you look at it, you can also play a 3 at the back system with starting as a 4 at the back. So, and I mentioned it, right? It's called the elbow system, where one of the wing backs is the offensive one, and the other one tucks in and forms a back 3. And if you look at it, Pep Guardiola employed it in their treble winning season, right?
Bayern Munich used to play it with Nagelsmann, as well.
Exactly, right. So I actually really like back 3. I think it allows you to like perform overloads in the attacking side with one of the fullbacks while still being a defensively solid team.
Yeah.
So I am completely in favor of using a back 3, but I think I just think we should probably, if we wanted to, we should probably play like a more traditional back 3, so like an Amorim system rather than the elbow system, because I think Udogie forming a back 3 with 2 center backs won't be a great idea, right? Unless we signed Hansko, right? Where then you can form a back 3 with him, right?
Or you even if you go and get a Branthwaite or someone,
or Branthwaite or Hincapie,
and then you could shift out Micky van der Ven out to the left hand side, who we've already got evidence to see more than capable and competent and comfortable driving the ball forward. Listen, I think we're all on the same page here. Like, I think that it doesn't take a lot to pivot this team into a system that is it's far more competent. For me, though, as we're going to move forward, guys, now, if you're okay with that, then we spoke about essentially a £50 million acquisition of a defender that can multitask, right? So if you're okay with that, then we move forward to the midfield. Now, I've gone, and in the midfield, I've basically kept everybody. Obviously, we've sold on this hypothetical game here. We've sold Bissouma, we've sold Bentancur. I think we only need 1 6 or 1 midfielder, because I'm making the assumption that on the basis of what we've already discussed, that you can promote Archie Gray towards where we bought him for as a 6. We don't really know what we have in Lucas Berghvall yet. We don't know if he is a 6 or an 8 or a 10. I would make the argument that I think on the provision that he can improve on 2 areas of his game that I think are the only obvious vulnerabilities. 1 is his temperament, and 2 is his ability to sort of conduct his business in close control. I think you give the guy a little bit of space, I think he's phenomenal. I think his passing, his peripheral vision, I think all of it is sensational. I like him in the 6, and I like the fact that he's spending a lot of time in the gym and he's bulking up. And it's great that Decky is taking him under his wing, especially such a role model who spends more time in the gym than out on the pitch. I think you're going to see just an incredible version of Berghvall. For me, first name on the midfield team sheet every week, but Lucas Berghvall. On that presumption that you have a little bit of creativity and a little bit of versatility in that 6, I would still be okay. I've been championing this idea for however many years now that we need a 6-6-6. But on the basis that you have a Berghvall that might end up being there, or an Archie Gray, then I'm going to just go with an easy option here because I want to save some budget for somewhere else. And I want your thoughts on this, guys. But I've gone with either one of the Gomez's, the one with the S or the one with the Z. I would love to see João Gomez from Wolves. I think he is incredible. I know that we've got Cardoso that we can throw in there, that we've got £20 million to spend. And if we do that, then that frees up more budget than I've allocated 40, I think it is, for Gomez. 20 for Cardoso, a freebie, but I've allocated £20 million in sign-on bonuses, etc., for the Gomez with an S, Angel Gomez from Lille. And that's where I would imagine that Tottenham are going to pivot to in the summer. Realistically, it's going to be one of those 3, either Gomez from Wolves, Gomez from Lille, or Cardoso. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that one. I'll start with wherever. Let's go. Just go, Michael first, and then we'll come down. Just go around.
Yeah. So I'm actually more in the boat of signing 2 midfielders. Listen, I know it's a lot, but or maybe I should start like from the beginning. For me, I think we need a left-sided centre back, left back, which is a priority, which we already discussed. If we are selling both Bissouma and Bentancur, I would substitute them with 2 midfielders. I feel like midfield is one of the most is the engine room. I feel like if there is a place where you can have a bit more players than you need, for me it's the midfield, right? So I would actually sign 2. And okay. I don't think the forward line is as big of an issue, because I'm a bit of a faithful guy that likes to give young wingers a chance. So I think we have a lot of young wingers that can play there. So I would rather focus on a striker, right? Which makes it 5 signings for me. So I would rather sign 2. And one of those would be a bit of a bigger signing, right? So I completely agree with the Gomez's and the Cardozo. I think
one of those three. One
of those 3 as one of the 2 signings I'm willing to make. But I would like the second midfield signing to be not a statement signing. It doesn't have to be an 80 million or anything stupid like that, right? But I want an experienced player. I want someone who really comes into the team and just pulls the strings and is capable of teaching the younger ones and is capable of just being like
in what position? Are we talking about an 8 or a 6 or what?
I would rather have this guy as a 6, but
a Josh Kimmich, that sort of player.
We want like that sort of player. We will never land Josh Kimmich, right? But for me, someone like Locatelli, he's a bit lightweight, right? I get the point that he might not be the best choice, but for me, he's not the most expensive one, but he's extremely...
Who is the name?
Locatelli from Juventus.
Locatelli, okay.
Yeah. So for me, a guy like him, right? I would really like to see like a 25, 27-year-old midfielder that has a lot of experience and is solid and is always available, right? Because that's what I think what we are missing with this midfield that we have currently, right? Reliability and someone who just plays there week in, week out. We can always rely on them. He's always available, and he actually has some quality, right? So I would rather. I personally.
How much would Locatelli cost, Michael? In your
I don't think much, right? Because I think he's on a year left, or maybe 2 years, right? So I think he would be like 40 million. I think at best. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the last summer he was quoted to be like 40 million or something. So you could make a guess that he would be cheaper this summer, but I'm just assuming that like 40 million for me would be like a perfect price for a guy like him, right? Unless, because I'm also saying him because like I don't want to move the funds around, because like if we spend 50 or 60 million on Diomande or Gueye, then we can't really spend in the midfield. But I wouldn't be opposed to like taking a bit of the money from Diomande or Gueye and actually using it for the midfielder and paying like 60
million. We're going back for a Hanko for less.
Yeah.
Okay. I hear. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm fine with your version too, right? Like one midfielder, if you have faith in Berghvall and Gray to play in the midfield, then completely fine. But I personally would want one more experienced head if we are getting off 2 experienced heads, because like with Bissouma, it's debatable. But
I hear. Listen, I forgot when I was doing my analysis like a donut, like the bozo that I am. I forgot all about Dragusin. If you keep Dragusin, then you maybe don't need the extra player. If you sell him, then maybe you can get 30 million for him, and then you can make room in the budget for an extra midfielder. I'm open-minded. For me, I genuinely do think that Berghvall, however his name is pronounced, I genuinely think that he is going to emerge next year as one of the, not just like top young players, but I think he will be known as one of the best players in the Premier League. I love him. The second I saw him, it's his, for someone so young in a team that's struggling, to have a never-ending appetite to get on the ball. Like that, you can't teach that. That's a desire and a willingness and a self-confidence that I don't care. I'm 18, and I remember him taking out was it Gravenberch, whoever it was in one of the games, where I was like, this guy, yes, he's a little bit rash. Yes, he's a little bit kind of over enthusiastic.
The yellow card.
Yeah, he got the yellow card stuff. But yeah, like I just think that if you can, that will come with maturity. But what you can't teach someone is self-confidence and desire to be on the ball regardless of the circumstance. And he had it at 18. Right? And I'm like, if he has it now, just imagine what this, and especially when he's under the wing of the most professional player at the club in Decky. So I have huge faith in him, and I have huge faith in Archie Gray. Can't wait for both of them. So I'm okay with just one coming in, but that player has to be a bit of a needle mover. And I'm okay. I don't particularly see the massive hype that everyone gives Cardoso. I think he's a bit of a kind of he likes to flick the ball over the top too much. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I'll come to you, Adrian. How do you see the midfield options?
Yeah, just a little bit on Dragusin first. Yeah, okay. He started brightly in the Euros for Romania, didn't he? He started brightly for us and dropped off. He could fit the system because he can fit a deeper system or this system because he's not short of pace. And to me, the jury's out on him. I mean, but moving on to the midfield, if you consider that 25-man squad, you get 2 players in every position. That gives you 22. The third goalkeeper gives you 23. That gives you 2 extra players. I don't mind 8 midfielders, Sean. I think we need it now, especially where midfield performance. Yeah, 8 of 8.
Is that including cams? Yeah.
Yeah, that's including cams. I don't mind having 8 midfielders because it's the most important part of the team. I mean, engine-wise, it is. And most games are won and lost in midfield. So I like Angel Gomez's passing. He's a diminutive player, though. That's the only concern. But our dealers were small. I like his crossfield passing. He's got a crossfield long pass in him like Berghvall's got on all that. So, and he's on a free, and I think he wants to come. So I would take him. The other player I'd like to bring in is David Fratesi of Milan. He went from Sassuolo to Milan. He's Italy international. He's fallen down the pecking order. He's like Højbjerg on steroids. He's box to box, aggressive, which is what we need. We don't have enough aggressive players in this team. I think he's like, you get Ederson if you can, but I don't think you go get Ederson. But ideally, you'd get Ederson and Fratesi. But
he's not going to come.
You'll get Fratesi on. He's been there a couple of seasons now. You'll get him between 30 and 40 million. You'd get him for that. And I think that's a good buy. I think that would be a good buy, and he would be a good fit for us. So I would go for him. And I know
the Italians don't typically travel very well, do they?
True.
I mean, I'm not discounting all of them, but because there's been some wonderful ones. I mean, obviously Gianfranco Zola was magnificent, but but they're kind of a bit more old school. Like I can't. Off the top of my head, and chat, forgive me if I'm wrong.
Most of them stay in Italy, like most of the English stay in England.
Yeah, I might just be totally stupid.
His style of play, if you watch the videos of Fratesi, you're not looking for sexy, but but he's just got that aggression in him, and he's a winner. Aggressive players are winners. Aggressive players to me are players like you've seen it in the past when 2 players used to go wrestle with the ball because the linesman or referee hasn't decided which way he's going to give a throw in. That's what I want to see in my players, right? I want to see that. They are winners, aggressive. Passive players, I'm not saying passive players aren't winners, but you just see it more in an aggressive player. And we don't have enough aggressive players in our squad. So to me, I'd go with Gomez because I like his technique.
Which one?
And Fratesi for me.
Which Gomez?
You keep Bentancur, and I would keep
which Gomez?
Angel. We like an angel. We need a miracle. So the more angels we got, the better.
I'm a bigger fan of João Gomez. I don't want when it comes to the 6. I want a demon. I want the devil. The Bible prophesied it 2,000 years ago. I'm not sure if an angel is the way to go forward. I'd rather have a go with horns. But listen, I'm happy. I don't mind Angel Gomez. I don't mind him. I just he doesn't excite me, to be honest. But Drew,
I think Angel Gomez is just too small. I just don't think he's going to cut it in the Premier League. And I'm sorry for any of our smaller friends out there. I'm not trying to be heightist. I get
accused of being it all the time. But at the same time, people think that I'm 6 foot, that I'm 5'7". I'm 6'1". So I'm,
Unfortunately, I just don't see it with him. And I could be completely muddied. He could end up he'll go to Forest and end up pulling all the strings, and he'll be magnificent. But just not for me.
Well, that's okay
I prefer the Gomez at Wolves. Is it João Gomez?
Gomez.
I think he's powerful. I think he can spot a pass. He can break play up. I think he's pretty good. And if we're taking the, slightly higher look or perspective at things, I really think you need at least a couple of these ready-made, been there and done it in the Premier League players. I think he'd do it.
João Gomez from Wolves for me was on my list. I think he's insane. Look, we could talk for days about the likes of Joe Bellingham, about Hayden Hackney. They're all going to cost a lot of money, and they're all going to come
Adam Wharton. Adam
Wharton's another one. There's a Palace fan in the chat just now. Yeah. Congratulations if you're still here.
Is he a Palace fan? Is he, Matt? Congratulations.
Yeah, incredible effort for you boys today. Well done. Semi-finals, eh? Dare to dream. The last thing I really want is another team that's not part of the original five to win a trophy. Otherwise, my entire 92% of all teams win trophies go to that whole thing falls apart if Newcastle and insert Crystal Palace here do it this year. Can't handle that. I can't handle the hate. I've got enough stress in my life. Okay, so let's move forward. Let's assume that we've got. I allocated. I think it was 30 million, but if we're going down the path of a Locatelli, if we're going down the path of a Fratesi, it's not going to be massive budget breaking. Bear in mind that the team that I put together, and I'm going to show you my end goal when we get to it, that it's a net zero summer. So based on the numbers that I started with, and obviously we've dialed back a little bit on a couple of them, we've actually increased a couple of them, and then some of the other names that are cropped up for midfielders and defenders, we might have dialed back, but with it, we've got an £80 million wiggle room with regards to what I think is possible with the kind of net spend. So I think you're going to look at the squads that I put together in a minute or when we get to it. And like I say, I don't think these are unreasonable. I think we're all consensus here that the numbers we're talking about are not too crazy, and that 5 out, 4 in, plus the promotion of a few young players that might be ready, might not be. And you've also got a third team full of youth that is incredibly exciting. Let's push up the pitch, guys. Last area of the pitch is, sorry, by the way, assuming the goalkeeper, everyone's okay with the goalkeeping setup, right? Mm-hmm. We've got, we're okay with Kinsky, we're okay with Vicario, we're okay with either Brandon Austin or Keeley or Gunter. Let's move forward. What I've got there, we talked about the outgoings. We only think Matisse Tell, I've said not at £50 million. I've essentially said if that's the player that we want to go for, fair enough, but nowhere near 50 based on what we've seen. But I've made room for one additional winger coming in, and I've said it might be Matisse Tell, not at 50, but I've given £50 million towards that player in my budgets, and I'm looking at players like Mateus Nunes. I'm looking at players like Jamie Gittins from Dortmund. I'm looking at 55, 60 million, 50 million pound, whatever, as an additional winger that can kind of also operate. If you're looking at like a Acuna, Mateus Cunha, sorry. If you're looking at someone like him, then you also have the versatility to be able to play across the park in the 10, the 7, or the 11. And that's where I've gone with my budget. I've added £50 million in that regard. And then just to finish off, I've also thrown in a £35 million budget for a striker that I've allocated to Jonathan David, because I really like him. Even though he wouldn't cost anything technically, he would cost something like 35 million in terms of, fees, agents, sign-on fees, bonuses, that sort of stuff. So I basically allocated about 85 million towards 2 players in the forward line in the budgets. And they're the players that I'm happy with. The Gittins, I'm happy with the Jonathan David. I'm happy if we were to go down a different path, but I don't think players like Gyökeres are realistic. I don't think, I'm trying to keep it as realistic as possible. Drew, I'll start with you on this one, mate, just to reverse engineer it. What do you think about someone like Acuna, someone like a Gittins, someone like a Tell if necessary? and then there's a striker to replace Richalison. Bearing in mind you'll have Will Lancashire chomping at the bit. Maybe you've got Dane Scarlett. Maybe you've got this guy Mason Melia, coming up as well.
Do you know what? I feel like, and this is I don't want to do Will Lancashire a disservice, but I actually am more excited about Melia than I am Lancashire. He's not really doing it at West Brom, unfortunately. I mean, I think he had a couple of good games to begin with, some nice touches, but he's kind of fallen off a bit. And I just wonder with him I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what, but I'm not quite seeing it with him at the moment. That's not to write him off. I just think maybe he's one of those guys that could do with. I think he may need to go down another level before he comes back up again. So,
or just someone that you end up like. It's okay thing, to
right?
pay £1 million for a player and sell them for 10 if they're not good enough for Tottenham, but they're good enough to make a profit. That's okay too, right?
It's all part of the cause, right? I mean, it was good enough for them lot up the road and Balogun, I think it was. I think they ended up getting 30 million for him. So it's all part of the cause. I would love Cunha because I think he can play all across the front line and he can drop into a number 10 and be a little bit creative. So I would take him in a heartbeat. And again, been there and done it. Reliable. My only concern with him is that there have been a couple of times where he sort of looked like he's thrown his toys out the pram a little bit to kind of get what he wants. So there is that side to him maybe. But that could be a little bit unfair because, the media only post what they want to post at certain times about things. But I think Cunha will be a great shout. Gittins, I don't know too much about, but I've heard everybody rave about him.
He looks incredible to me.
Yeah, I think you need. I can't see us getting rid of Johnson, so I just think you need somebody that's on that right side that's a bit more assertive, that's going to give him a kick up the arse. I can't see us getting rid of Sonny, so you've got to. I think you've got to allow.
You got Mikey Moore coming through as well, right? So, and you've got Jamie Donnelly maybe returning. So, like I say, it doesn't have to be the way I've ascribed it. If you feel differently about the budgets, it's okay to reposition it. But I'm just sitting there, kind of like trying to think of how do you get 22 players in the first and second team that don't look too different in terms of quality, and then you have the third team of youth players that I'll show you my end up squads in a second, but. Yeah,
I mean, I'd go for a Jonathan David based on if we're going based on numbers and we're going based on trying to fit it into the budget. I mean, obviously he's not going to cost an absolute arm and a leg. My concern is he's probably going to want to come in and play first fiddle. So does that then put Solanke's? Does that then put him out of joint? Do you know what I mean? Because he's arguably first, and I know we shouldn't. It's a squad and we shouldn't be looking at first and second team, but players are humans. And if he's kind of said to himself, well, I'm the number 9 now, and that's kind of been solidified, and then someone comes in expecting to be the number 9, from the outside looking in, we all love some healthy competition. On the inside, that might be butting people's heads, and there might be not the cohesive unit that we want it to be. So I think, especially given the fact
you can't worry about that stuff as a fan that's playing make believe.
Right. Well, right. That's the thing. I mean, I guess from a EAFC 26 point of view, I would love to have Solanke, David, and Cunha as forward options, because I think then if you've got Sonny, you're getting rid of Werner, you've got Moore on the come up. You've got, players like maybe Udogie who could possibly come in and, do 10, 15 minutes here or there. We're going to have to integrate these youngsters at some point. So maybe we reserve a little bit of the budget for somewhere else and promote a couple more of the kids.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Adrian, what say you, mate? How does Gittins sound to you, buddy?
Yeah, but I don't think we're going for Gittins. I think we've made our mind up. I think we're going for Tyler Diblin. I think we're going to get him. It might not please a lot of fans because he's young, but I think it's going to be a Tyler Diblin. If you're talking about Cunha at 60-odd million, there are cheaper options. I mean, I've banged on about Vlahovic for a while, pushed down the pecking order.
Different types of players, mate. Vlahovic is an out-and-out 9. Cunha's an out and out 7, 10, 11. He's like an 8.5.
Well, and he can play. I mean, I've seen Vlahovic break from midfield, take players on, things like that. I'm not sure he suits the system, but does that mean you've got to bring everyone? You need a bit of variety anyway. And I think he would be a good buy, and he's available. And I think Paratici will be back at this club in a full-time capacity. And I think there's every chance that you're going to see like Italian players at this club in the transfer window. But I think Tyler Diblin, we've been sniffing around him for so much. There's something to this. I know other clubs are interested, but he's right on the south. Rumour is he wants Tottenham. There's not.
When you say Italian player, when you say Italian players, you mean Italian-based players or actual Italian?
Yeah, or players in Serie A is what I mean. Players in Serie A of any nationality. Because
and that might just be semantics from me, but it's just. I just
think so. That's what we do here, mate. That's what we do here.
And I just think you got like the value and the quality of the players. Cunha's good. This is good. Brahimo's good. I mean, you can go through wingers, can't you? Coman.
It's the most oversaturated position in the game.
Semenyo. No one's mentioned Semenyo. I mean, but all those players are going to cost you 60 mil. Now, I'm not saying we haven't got the budget.
Bakayoko wouldn't.
The budget, yeah. And now you're looking at the quality you can bring in within that budget. Quality, not backup. I hate the term backup. We're Tottenham Hotspur, one of the richest club in the world, and we shouldn't be using the term backup at all. We should be bringing in players that compete. You like City, they haven't got a squad of 25, but they've got 18, 19 when everyone's fit. And that's what you got to look for. You want a minimum level on the pitch. You're allowed 5 subs. That's 16. 2 concussion subs. That's 18. You really want out of that squad of 18. You can mismatch the rest with some academy players and all that, because 5 of those players are going to be left out of the match day squad. And I always look when everyone's fit to see who the manager likes by seeing who he's actually left out the squad if everyone's fit.
Yeah, and obviously, we're on the presumption here that we're not making Europe, right? Obviously, if we do make Europe, if we qualify for the Champions League via the Europa League, then obviously, in my estimation, I think that I know this is going to offend people. I know it does, but I think that whilst I don't necessarily in any way have that much faith in Ange, I think I said it at the start, right? I think that meritocracy should prevail, and that if you win the Europa League, you're the most successful manager at Tottenham in 45 years. Right? You've done what no one else could do. Not Poch, not Harry Redknapp, not Yol, not anyone. Right? And so I think that the guy gets his contract at least fulfilled, or at least you start the next season. I'm not sure that will happen, but in any event, if you do get to the Champions League, then you have to then find a squad capable of playing 2 games a week for the majority of the season and against the very best. The money's there. You see how much money Liverpool made before even the halfway point. They made 100 million euros. But on the presumption that doesn't happen, this is essentially, I mean, I was going to come to Michael, but he's disappeared, obviously, to speak to his family or something. So this is, Michael's back. Michael's back.
He hasn't heard a word.
I was just about to bring up my three squads, right? But I want to give you the chance to kind of chime in quickly on the forward line. Again, so the same sort of rules apply, right? I've allocated, what was it? What did I say? Like 70 million or something, 60 million, whatever it was for a striker and a winger. How would you like to see that spent?
Me?
Yeah.
So, for me, Jonathan David is a no-brainer. I don't think he's like a word beater, but I don't think we need word beaters. I think we need depth, we need availability, we need workhorses, we need strikers who are capable of scoring enough goals, not 30 goals. We don't need right now with this crop of players that we have. I don't think we necessarily need like of course, it's nice to have a 30 goal a season striker, right? But I don't think it's a necessity. So I would be completely fine with Jonathan David. I know like the competition will be steep and the signing on fees will probably be big. And wingers, I think a lot of it depends on whether Johnson and Son stay, right? Because I would get rid of Johnson. I don't think he's a good player. I had the possibility of seeing him live. For the first time ever, I was on a Spurs match. It was like 3 weeks ago, I think, and I've seen him for 45 minutes. And I just confirmed what I thought about him. He's not a hard worker. Yeah, basically. He doesn't work hard for the team. He doesn't run. He doesn't show for the ball. He hides a lot. I just don't find quality in a player like him. I don't care if he scored 15 goals this season. Like those were like bar 2 or 3 goals. Those were mostly tap-ins. So I would get rid of him. And with Sonny, I would love it if he assumed more of a sub role, or like he plays 90 minutes here, 30 minutes there, then 60 minutes, then 90 minutes, 30 minutes, like not 90 minutes every single week, because he's no longer capable of doing such thing, right?
Agreed.
But it's a bit hard with wingers, right? Because I think wingers are some of the most overpriced. Like it's
also oversaturated as well.
Yeah,
the most commonly found talented player for me is a winger. Right?
But for me, this is the position where you can spunk the biggest money and sign the biggest draws, right?
Yeah.
Because I think some of the wingers that are going for 60 or 70 millions, they are never worth 10, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the skill set that they have, like I don't care about how many shimmies you can do and go run past one player when you run into a brick wall just after that player, or you can cross the ball, or you can shoot, right?
You can also find £10 million gems that can create incredible value for your team.
Yeah, so I don't really have a name, like a concrete name for a winger, but I bet someone can find someone good, right? It's a bit of a wishful thinking, but I didn't really delve much into it, because the way I see it, right, we have Odobert, we have hopefully Micky Moore if he stays, right? Although there are some rumors about him possibly leaving, right? I think Young, if he's there, I would be willing to give him a chance. And we have Odobert, right? So these are 4 wingers if you don't include Johnson, and Kulusevski can play on the wing. And Son and Kulusevski, right? So for me, these are 5 wingers. So I would preferably sign a bit of like a more experienced winger. Not experienced as in his 30s, but like 24, 25.
Someone that you just know,
someone that
he's done it. You know what you're going to get, rather than a fact. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be a world beater, but I think he would supplement the squad really nicely. We could use him as a starting winger and give a lot of game time to the younger ones to bet them in and to show and to see for ourselves if they are good enough to play, right? So
I hear you guys. I hear you. Look, just to give you because obviously when I started this stream, I thought it was going to be just me, but it's been wonderful with the 3 of you guys. It's been
great. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it as well. Really have. I wanted to just show you where I landed based on the numbers that I'd thrown up there, and where I came to was that's the third team. 1 second. On the screen here, so you can see and this is in no particular order, right? But this is a potential first team next season based on my calculations, which I think most people have. We've punched the numbers a little bit. We've dripped some up, we've dripped some down in terms of expense and the sales that I think are reasonable. And even I've obviously left an £80 million budget surplus, right? So these 3 screenshots I'm going to show to you. The first one is on the screen right now. This assumes, based on the numbers that I put out initially, that it's a net zero summer. But obviously, we've dialed back a little bit on Romero. We've dialed up a little bit on this, that, and the other. We spent a little bit more here and there. But we could end up with a situation where you have something like this. And I want to get you guys' takes on it. And you can feel free to replace the players that you mentioned previously. But Udogie, Van der Ven, Diamandi, and Porro as our back 4 with Vicario in goal. Archie Gray and Berghvall in the 6s/8s, and then someone like Jamie Gittins, but it doesn't have to be him. Decky in the 10, Odobert and Solanke. So not too much difference in terms of what we already have, apart from a swap for Romero and Diamandi, and a swap with Gittins for a Sonny, for example. The other 11 that can pop in, and again, I don't know which one would be. If this was a training match, I'm not sure who would win. But I brought in David Hanko or Hankso. How do you say it, Michael? Hansko.
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 It's like a
The C is an S,
percussion. Percussion, yes, like an S basically.
Okay.
Like I don't know how else to explain it.
That's perfect. So I put Hansko in there, Voskovic, Danso, and Spence with Pape Sarr, and I've thrown in Gomez, but you can insert whoever you want there. And then I've got Sonny, Maddison, and Johnson, and Jonathan David up the top. So not a huge amount of change, but I'm not sure there's too much difference in quality between those two teams. And then I've just thrown in a third team there of the young players that would be there. I've got Yang, Donnelly / Williams Barnett as a 10, Mikey Moore or J.A. on the right, Mason Melia, Dane Scarlett, Lancashire, or Liz at the top. And we could sell any of these players, by the way. And then in the midfield, George Abbott, who, by the way, is killing it in League Two.
Yeah.
I think he's got like 10 GA this season as a DM. It's insane. I've also put in Eloise and Therese Hall and Alfie Devine and Kyra Martin as other midfielders. You know what? The one thing, when you look through our youth team, there's not a lot of in the way of fullbacks, right? But I've put in Ashcroft and Linton as fullbacks. And then you've also got space for Ash Phillips and Casanova. And at the back, Josh Keeley and Gunter. And I think that a lot of that youth team is capable. I'm not sure, obviously, if any of these guys are going to, all of them are going to be hanging around. I'm sure they'll go out. A lot of them will go out on loan again. But there's a hell of a lot of youth team talent. And then when you compare these two teams, this is just me, like, obviously you can mix and match, right? So you can have like David Hansko on left back, and you could have Van der Ven at left back. You could have Diamandi at right back, and you could have Jez Spence at right back. You could have Gray and Berghvall, or you could have Gomez in there. I think Sarr probably is relegated to the bench regardless in terms of first team. And then at the top end of the pitch, if Sonny's staying, and he might not be, James Maddison, we're not going to just demote him to second fiddle, but him versus Decky, right? And obviously competing maybe with the likes of some of the guys coming through, or you could throw in a Mateus Nunes in there if it's not Jamie Gittins, someone that can play a little bit of versatile football. And then you've got Wilson Odobert on the right. This is again presuming that Matisse Tell doesn't stay, right? So I haven't even factored in Matisse Tell there. But like I say, those three squads are based on, I don't think, unreasonable valuations on the sales or the purchases, and that is a net zero summer, a net zero. And I think if you look at those three squads, there's not a lot of difference, or the two main squads. There's not a lot of difference between the first and the second team, and that's a net zero. You throw in the £80 million extra, and then you can pivot and go where you want with the additional spend in certain positions, or dialing back what you. I personally don't. I think you could get £75-80 million for Romero. Right? I think that you could get a Hansko for 40 million, but I factored into that 50 million for the defender replacement. I factored in £80 million for the forward line, right, and that's including £30 million for the likes of a Jonathan David, but obviously he'd come as a freebie. You're paying it in different ways via agents or whatever that would still be part of the net spend ratios for squad costs. But that's why I titled this window as like dream transfer window, and it costs nothing. But it doesn't take a lot to sell 4 or 5 of those players and to bring in 4 or 5 players and a transfer net spend of 0. Tottenham, for me, then, especially, and that's not including European football. That is like if you have the £100 million additional budgets of qualifying for the Champions League and from winning the Europa League, then obviously you can increase the value. I wanted to get your take, guys, on my squad, and I think that squad is capable of doing bits next year with a manager that is a little bit more considerate of defensive football, a little bit more considerate of who you're playing, when you're playing, game management, all those sorts of things. I think that particular squad has youth on its side, has an exuberance, has talent, has skill, has bite, has all of the guile that you need. It's balanced. It's got left foots and right foots, and there's still wiggle room in there if Daniel Levy wants to come out and surprise us all by spending a little bit more money than he would otherwise do. And I think Tottenham can more than reasonably be expected, with a better manager and less European football distractions, to be qualifying for the Champions League or otherwise next year. And I wanted to get your thoughts, guys. I'll start with Adrian. I'll let you go first on this one, mate, and then we'll
I think the players we've alluded to in your teams that come up I think it would only take about 4 players to transform our squad. It would really freshen it up. I would like to, even with Odegaard there on the right, he can play on the left. Not sure we get Giddens. That's why I would like to see Tyler Diblin on the right. I think that would make a big difference. Odegaard can play across the three. You've seen him. He does look a talent, doesn't he? I mean, to be honest, I know I wouldn't give you 20 mil for Tell at the moment, but I went and watched his video the other day on the left. Watched him on the left. He got a couple of goals for the French under-21s. Odegaard played well for the under-21s as well. And I watched his preview, and like, Tell does look one hell of a player on YouTube on the left, you know. So he's only got, well, we got 10 minimum league games left to prove himself, and how many games we got? 2 in Europe that we hope we're going to win that competition, I think. So you might get, he's got 15 games to prove that he's worth a fee. What fee that finally is, who knows? But if he can produce what I've seen on YouTube, I would keep Tell. I would get him in.
Yeah, so the only reason I didn't include him is because I think the £50 million agreed price.
He hasn't shown it, has he? Got one goal against
there's no valuation
goal on the outside of his foot from that decky cross in the cup, right? But he's run about a bit, but he hasn't shown anything at Premier League level, has he?
I don't think so. I'd happily go back to the negotiating table and say 20 million.
Yeah,
but
we give you
I'm not 50, 60 million from Matisse Tell. Sorry, no. You know, not interested.
Bissouma and Forster, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look. I mean, Bayern Munich are about to give Eric Dyer a new contract, so
they love him.
Like, you know, they absolutely adore him over there. They absolutely love him. So, like, there is that conversation around like horses for courses. Some players are better fit for different teams, different systems, different leagues. You know, you shouldn't just write off our own valuation because they haven't made it in a certain system.
It's like when we were talking about centre backs. Now, when you bring them in, the reason you have to do a lot of is simply because like it's all right if you've got someone like Mikkel's running about in a back three, but it's not just that. If you're looking at a centre back who's played in a mid-lock, low-block, counter-attacking team, they won't have been put under as much pressure as a centre back who's been in a pressing team. Whereupon, give me the centre back in the pressing team if he's done well, because he'd have to keep his wits about him more. So there's a big difference on systems when you bring a player in. Just because they look good, fine, but do they look good in a system that's going to suit you? Like, Is the centre back, you know, because we've all said, oh, yeah, bring the centre back, you ain't got pace. Well, we've shown with Romero and Van der Ven that one with pace is superb, pace is critical. But Romero's not slow.
For this guy, but we don't know if this guy's going to be here, right? You know, I would imagine. I don't think it's fair, but even if he does win the league, the Europa League, I don't think he will be here next season. I think Daniel Levy will say thank you next.
If you want a manager in that's going to bring the youth through and do well and done well on a restricted budget, you know, Paratici gets us Xavi. We get Xavi, and he did that with Barcelona under restricted, you know, he was restricted there. They were going for all their.
I'm not sure about Xavi, mate. I think that's Harrods Tupperware for me. I'm not sure about him. I'm really not.
Better than Poundland Tupperware.
Guys, I have to go. So
Michael, before you go, can you stick your number in the private chat so I can communicate with you?
And I want it as well. I want it as well, Michael, please.
Michael, absolute legend, mate. Thank you for coming on, buddy. Really great to meet you. Really great to have your say, buddy. See you soon, buddy. Take care.
By the way, bye.
Cheers, mate. Drew, what's your say on the squads, mate? I'm busting. I have 3 hours, mate. I'm busting for a week, but I can hear because the toilet's right there. But let me know your thoughts. 1 second. Okay, go. You're on mute. You're on mute, Drew.
I'm mute, aren't I? There we go. Do you know what? I feel like those midfields are just light, and I think it was mentioned by D-Boss 140 in the chat. Big up D-Boss. I just think it's all a little bit lightweight, especially that second squad. I mean, with Sonny on one wing and Johnson on the other, who, I mean, Sonny, I think at best 60, 70 minutes in his legs now, like a real out-and-out Sonny display. I just, you know, I'm not of the mind where he says he's in the best shape of his life. I'm sorry, I just don't get it. I just don't buy it. Johnson on the other side, we all know Johnson's limitations, especially when it comes to tracking back and pressing. So I can just see that midfield, especially of Sarr and Gomez, no matter how good Gomez is, of just being overrun. So, and Maddison, I just don't know. He's not one that tracks back too often, is he? So I don't know. I think we missed the possibility of Dorrington coming back. That was also mentioned in the chat. Somebody mentioned his name, Angelo Tyro. I feel like there's the possibility, if you take into account how well Danzo did before he went down, the possibility that Dragoshin in another system works a little better than he has been. I think maybe you can get away with spending a little bit less on the defence and maybe getting one of those out-and-out midfielders that we've been looking at that is kind of a linchpin and does just kind of sit there and command. Now, who that is, I'm not entirely sure. Can you bring up those? Can you flash those teams up again while you're there, mate? Because that first team as well, I wanted to have another look.
Well, there's no first team there. I've just thrown out.
Right. And and again, see with that,
But you could imagine, like, if Udogie's not quite the player because Udogie's disappointed, right? Largely. Right. So you can swap him out for you could move Van der Ven out to the left and put in David Hansko, or you could put Hansko out to the left. You can put Jed Spence out on the left. You know, that's why I've kind of gone for I appreciate versatility, but I don't think that versatility is the be all and end all. I think that specificity is great, but we don't have a lot of options at left back. But we would do if we can keep Van der Ven fit and bring in a player that can do the same thing. And it could be doesn't have to be the names I put in there. We've spoken about loads more names. You know, we've spoken about Adrian's a big fan of Hincapié, for example. Right? So there's loads of players that we can play in that role.
At left back, we have been linked with the ex-academy player Sirkin. You've got Ait Nuri at Wolves left back, Kirkes, who played very well against us recently, Robertson at Luton, and Ratu, who's the Romanian one getting rave reviews. He's 26, 27, but why haven't we heard more about him before? It's when these players are brought up and you haven't heard about them, and then you find out they're 28. You're thinking, well, hang on.
Well, but mate, you know what, Adrian? I made a massive mistake. Always happy to own these things. I was wrong about, in my opinion, I was wrong about Jonathan David. The other player I think I was wrong about was not El Yawahi. Someone in the comment section remind me. The people that always remind me of my mistakes. There was a player who played for Stuttgart before and is now playing for, I think it's Dortmund.
Guirassy?
Serhu Guirassy. Yeah, I called him clumsy.
I liked him. He's 29. Yeah. I wanted him.
I know he's getting old, right? But he's like
before Solanke.
The reason why I said what I said about him was I was like, well, where were you when you were 21, 22, 23, 24, 25? Where were you then? And he shot to fame last year or the year before, had 2 good seasons on the bounce in Germany, then went to Dortmund and carried on. And
some strikers did it later. Ian Wright, a prime example.
Yeah, there's loads. Jeff Horsfield. Jeff Horsfield was 27, still playing non-league football. Went to Fulham in the Premier League and cracked it. You know, there's loads of, but they are few and far between. Let's be honest. Like most of the big players, you'll have known about by the time they get to 22.
My issue with wingers is, I mean, I've always said as a wild analogy that I don't care if we got Messi on one wing and Ronaldo on the other, as long as they are goal-scoring wingers. You need Arsenal scored 100 goals, right, and finished second, right, in the Premier League. Where are we finding 100 goals for in our team? If we're bringing in wingers in, they've got to be able to score goals. Now, Johnson, for all his faults, I didn't want him before he came in this club. I looked at the videos of all.
I didn't want Johnson. I didn't want Richalison.
But he has got 14 goals and 3 assists, and they're not just tap-ins. And fans see how he's a tap-in merchant. It takes anticipation in the box and all that.
Correct.
If we do bring a winger in, you want one that's a proven, that is a goal scorer, not one that's got, he looks good, he's a prospect. No,
I want someone. I made my. I don't care if you don't score 20 goals as a winger, but what I do care about is whether you're looking up at the right time and picking the right spot. And I think that the difference between 20 million pound wingers and 70, 80 million pound wingers, the difference between a Rafinha and a Koleosho is very little on the eye test, but it's you zone in and go, well, both of them can take a man on, but who looks up, who picks the spot, who gets it there 80 times out of 100. Rafinha scores the goals as well, but it's about looking up at the right time. And I think too many wingers are like, they're show ponies and they look good, but they don't look up. And Sonny's become that. Sonny has become that. Unfortunately, the lack of confidence that he has, he's now a head down, eye down. He's an Ange Postecoglou clone. But Ange Postecoglou isn't kicking balls. He's looking at the floor anyway. But, the players on the pitch need to be looking up. Now, Decky does it a little bit on the other way. Decky's someone
he
who's
looks
like
to get a shot off. Sonny does look to get a shot off. And the problem is most of the time, when we do get the ball on the break, whoever's the winger, and Decky's the prime example, usually ends up holding it up because he's got no one to give it to. And if he runs down a wing, it's pretty pointless. So, he's looking to, square the ball in midfield for someone. And this is another issue with the way we play and our football's so robotic. You find wingers, I've seen it at other teams, wingers get down a byline, there's no one in the middle. There's no one there.
That's the other problem. Yeah, the system, you require these players to be able to get there.
Now, if you hit that pinpoint cross and the striker smashes it in the net either with his head or his leg, suddenly all the pundits on the Sky Sports go, oh, brilliant cross, what an inch perfect cross, yeah? And then you go and check the stats of how many inch perfect crosses that winger's hit. They don't exist, even Trent.
But that's the thing, Adrian, right? And I think that the smarter minds in the room, of which I attribute you guys of having, and I hope I would consider myself somebody who pays enough attention. But I think there is sometimes, right, like a winger can get to the byline, look up and pick the right cross. But if it goes into no man's land because the striker's in the wrong place, and then who gets criticised, right? The winger gets criticised.
The right cross is the thing as well. You look at Scarlett's goal, right, against Elfsborg, right?
Elfsborg, yes, yeah,
right, against Elfsborg, right? Decky's cross was put into the right area. Scarlett's intent, he had to run onto that ball to get it in.
Right.
So it's not always about...
You've got to put it in the danger zone.
Yes.
You've got to put it in the danger zone, but...
In the corridor
I think you have... When you're analysing a striker, a winger, and you're going, well, this guy puts it into the box, but there's no one ever there to meet it. Whose fault is that? Well, statistically, if you're just someone who looks at the stats, you're going to blame the winger because it's crosses that are incomplete. But that doesn't mean, unless this is where the eye test is necessary, and also the ability to think between outside the box or between the lines. You have to well, did he put it in the right zone? And just because the zone was empty, whose fault is that? But it's not going to count against the striker statistically. It's going to count against the winger. And that's where you need to have the ability and the familiarity with watching the game. And that's why people that don't follow, like when I was saying what I was saying about Eze, and I've been mudded for it, although Drew came to my defense, little legend that he is, that sometimes you if you're not watching Crystal Palace as much as you're watching Tottenham, then you might look at the stats and go, crosses attempted, crosses completed, and you go, well, he's only got a 20% cross completion ratio, therefore he's not as good as he once was. But ultimately, I'm not sure if that's the case with Eze, because I don't watch Crystal Palace closely enough. But if you're watching the game, then you'll know, well, actually, Eze put the ball in the danger zone 8 times, but there was no Matete there for whatever reason.
Stats, aren't they? They're just the guide stats. There's too many variables. I mean, I've always used the eye test when I go to games, and I've watched games and thought we were total crap, then looked at the stats afterwards and found out, we got more possession, we were better on challenges and all that, and yet we lost the game 2-0 or whatever. We've all
if you're watching the game closely, then stats shouldn't matter.
No, shouldn't.
Right? You should be able to go, I watched the game enough to know that we were outclassed. I don't care if the stats say that we won 10 out of 12 duels or whatever. We were totally outclassed. But if you're not watching the game, then the stats could be something where you can go and get an impression, but the impression can be misleading unless you're watching the game. So that's why I think the stats are a part of the conversation, but you have to go and then double check. And that's why the Y Scout tool is brilliant. And I keep reaching out to Y Scout and keep saying, sponsor me and I will get you a ridiculous amount of subscriptions if we can get to a price point that's reasonable, because what those guys offer is the access to be able to go, well, let me go and dial in on Brennan Johnson specifically, and let me go and see just his crosses, and let me see whether or not his completion ratio is down to him or down to the inability for Solanke or Richalison Etihad to get there. Guys, we've been going for 3 hours nearly. I do want to get the roundup, and I think we intercepted Drew Zilla's takeaway quickly on the last spot there. Drew, sorry, mate. You know what I'm like.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm going to just play devil's advocate a little bit. I think we run the risk of too many changes again in another season if we do what we would have been discussing. I think less is more.
Too much, yeah? Okay.
I think less is more in this instance, and I think we run the risk of doing another mid-table run.
So 4 in, 5 out is too much, is it?
I think so. When you consider that the players have already not really played very much football with each other, and we're now taking out a couple of arguably a couple of linchpins in if we do lose Romero and we do lose Bentancur. I mean, those are 2 staples in the last 2 or 3 years. So you're losing what experience we do have and not really replacing it with experience. So just to throw a little, wrench in it, I just think that I think 3 big changes would be better than 5. I don't want to say mediocre ones, but as I say, my concern is we run the risk of not having enough consistency, because the only thing we're consistent at is changing players over the last 2 seasons and being inconsistent because of it.
Yeah. Listen, Drew, I don't disagree with you, mate. I made the argument with Johnny the other day, and I think Johnny agreed that I'm also okay with the idea of like if we only have X amount to spend, and we on that during that show we were like ignoring sales values, right? And so we were just saying like assume everything's as it is, add 2. How do you do it? If you've got 80 bar to spend, how do you split that up? And I think we were both saying the same thing. I'd much rather see us go 2 ways with that 80 million than 5, right? Because I don't want 5, 20, 15 million pound players. It's just you end up just having more deadwood. You're just kicking the can, right? And there's a reason why they're 15 million. Yeah, occasionally, sure, you can find players that are going to treble in value or whatever, but the vast majority of the time, the value's known and they're priced according. So, I agree. But on the basis of what I presented to you guys today, and again, I did what I did, thinking it was going to be a solo stream. For what it's worth, Adrian, you've been incredible as always. Drew, you've been absolutely sensational. And as always, mate, I love you too. You guys are regular guests
and
here.
we're both Spurs diehards admins, right? So
yeah. Mikhail was. I've been waiting to get him on for a while. I love the guy. He's so logically consistent. I love the fact that
you have your WhatsApp group, Sean. I know you don't go in it. I'm
not in my own WhatsApp group, mate. Let alone adding new people. I can't even add myself
as well, so we can get him as a regular guest.
Yeah, listen, we're going to leave it there. Guys, let us know in the comments, just to quickly to round off in case you watch this later. These were the teams. That was the third team, the kids team. Alfie Devine, Kyrie Martin as options, Albert Oluwasi, Tyrese Hall, Yang, Donnelly, Williams Barnett, Moore, Ajayi, Melia, Scarlett, Lancashire, Valiz.
Should be a Dorrington in there as well, bud.
There should be a Dorrington in there as well. I forgot about him. Linton, Phillips, we'll call Phillips Dorrington, and Casanova, Ashcroft, and Keeley Gunter. I mean, it's just an incredible team that have got coming up. And then this is the 2 teams that I just put together. No particular first or second team. I'd actually love to see this team take on the next one. But Solanke, Gittins, Decky, Odebear, Berghvall, Gray, Udogie, Van der Ven, Diamandi, Porro, and Vicario against Kinsky, Hansko. Now I know how to say his name. Vuskovic, Danso, Jed Spence, Sarr, Gomez, Son, Maddison, Johnson, and David. Look, if we could put together something like that as a squad next season without European football, I mean, I think that under a new managerial guise, we could do a lot better, and we could be right back up there punching at the top end of the pitch. Let us know in the comment section. Adrian, if you've got something to plug, you've got something coming up on Spurs Diehards?
Yeah, we have. I mean, obviously, we haven't been doing shows because we don't want to just do a show and bore people to death, right?
When Johnny.
No. But your shows are interesting. I mean, so Drew will be hosting the Spurs Darts Friday shows at 10 o'clock UK time to attract the American audience, because that's where he's based. And I'll be riding shotgun for him. So he'll sort the guests out for Fridays. They go out 10 o'clock UK time. The Monday and Sunday shows, Tuesday and Monday shows go out at 9 o'clock UK time. EMF hosts the Monday show, so I'll be doing. I pick the worst day to do shows for us, which is the Tuesday, because it might clash with European football, whatever, but not all throughout the season. So, yeah, and so those two shows go out at 9 o'clock. We also have a Facebook group with 14,500 members. My WhatsApp, my XCOM handle is under my name here @under Adrian_Stroker here for anyone who can be bothered to use Facebook or the new form of Twitter, which is XCOM. Yeah, we got a Spurs page as well, which has only just been started. It's just got a few hundred members. So I can post those. Our videos go out live on the page as well as out on XCOM as well. So we're growing. We've been going 8 months, but we're doing fine, aren't we, Drew? We're doing all right.
Doing all right.
You guys are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I love having you on, and I really appreciate you coming on today. It was supposed to be an hour show if it was just me, but you know what happens, and love the fact that it happened the way it did.
Sean, have I got? I know you had a lot of hassle. Have I got your latest number to contact you to get you to come on our shows with me and Drew and whatever?
You have, but you have to text me on SMS, mate. But better yet, if anyone in the comments wants to come on the channel or anyone wants to contact me, best way to do it right now is via Twitter. My intentions are to or hopefully solve what I've got to solve. And by the way, shout out if you are watching, Steve, you're an absolute legend, my man. Tottenham community member reached out to me who's helping me. I won't go into more detail than that. I don't want to bring any more attention to it. But on top of that, I'm also going to be launching a non-telephone number based community, whether that is via something like I can't remember the name of the fucking YouTube, the social media channel. Where it's one of those what's the thing where people like, it's like a forum. It's not like it's like a Reddit, but it's you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's coming soon. It's coming soon. You can tell I've been going 3 hours and this is starting to kick in. I've got to go.
You need to drink some more. You need to drink some more. On our show, Sean, what days in the future suit you better? I mean, the 10
Well, let's not talk about that right now, mate. Let's talk about backstage.
That in the back room, man.
Yeah. Guys, like, subscribe, and comment. And get over to Spurs Diehards and all the things that Spurs Diehards spoke about, all the agents spoke about. And we'll see you in the next one. Let us know in the comments whether or not you think that that's a net zero summer that you'll be happy with. I think it would be fantastic. Something like that anyway. And even with the numbers that we've gone with, I think we've been fairly fair. We can make something happen with Daniel Levy's purse strings, and Tottenham can do things next year. See you on the next one, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on.
Come on, you Spurs. Big up the chat.
Big up.